Hello, everyone, and welcome back to yet another Fridays with Mrs. Ginny. I am your host, Mrs. Ginny. And if you are watching this, then hopefully you know by now that that means that our little bundle of joy is here. And so I am taking a step back from YouTube right now to enjoy and soak in all of that newborn goodness. However, I am not going to neglect you guys in that endeavor. And so I am doing this so that way you guys can still have your Mrs. Ginny fixed and that you do not have to go without. And so for tonight's stream, we're going to be talking about finances, money, stewardship, all that good stuff, because I believe that as a Christian, it is important that we know how to best manage our finances, manage our wealth or lack thereof, and that we are doing our best and, being wise about the things that God gives us. Primarily, being that our time, that's the most valuable thing that he gives. But people are struggling with their money. Money, it comes and goes. Bible says, it'll take flight like it has wings. And so we want to make sure that when money passes through our hands, that we are doing the best with it that we can, that we are being wise with it, that we are being God honoring with our finances. And I wanted to do this show to show that, truth is universal. This is something that back when I was in Amway that they would talk to us about a lot. And they would say that, the things that we're teaching you guys, you can go and you can take this information and not just build your Amway business, but you can go out and build any business with this stuff because truth is universal. And so I always like that. That always stuck with me because I feel like it's true, good principles are not relegated to just one belief system or one apparatus. And so we have a friend today, a previous joiner of the channel, back once again. And it is our dear friend, Reckless Ray Dinero. Ray, how are you today?
Wonderful, wonderful. Happy to be here.
I'm so glad. It's been too long since we had you on. I don't even remember what we talked about last time.
Dude, it was something down a rabbit hole. I guarantee.
Yes, without a doubt. But give everybody your temperature. Give us your background, because I follow you online and I follow you here on YouTube, so I understand that you have credentials, that you know what you're talking about when it comes to money. But let people know why they should listen to you.
Okay, so first and foremost, my spiel is pretty simple. I'm not on the rooftop yet, not on the mountaintop. Like, I'm not talking down to anybody unless it's something that I've been involved with for over a decade. So my background is pretty simple. I'm 40 now. At 25, decided I was going to get my finances together because I'd hit a bottom. Like, I was heavily in credit card debt. Didn't know how that tool worked and was using it to my disadvantage very heavily. In the process of starting to get some stuff pieced together to start paying that debt off, I stumbled into the cryptocurrency space like 5 years into the process of me getting my finances together. Got into that space pretty early, 2013. Like, I was mining and kind of doing it very passively, not paying attention. Built a computer, set it in a corner, let it run till it burned up. And then the first bull run that I was involved with was 2017, I believe, because 2013 was the tail end of a bull run. And so the prices were kind of fluctuating, but like nothing big. 2017, I realized that I had a grip of money that I'd been mining up, and then I didn't have access to it for the entire bull run. And then at the crash, I finally got access to it. But I found that I had accumulated not doing anything. Well, building the computer and running it and paying for energy. I'd accumulated $6,000, which was the most money that at that point in time that I'd ever had at one point in time, like ever. And so then I started getting more active within the space, doing some investing, getting some money, losing some money, losing a lot of money. Like, I've lost a lot of money. Like, I'm not going to be one of those guys that tells you I never miss. I definitely have missed in the cryptocurrency space. Like, I've lost people's salaries in a year and still come out ahead, but like still like losing more than what you make or your own salary doesn't feel good. Even on a year that you like come out a little bit ahead, where it's like, hey, like we walked away with 10 grand. It's like, you lost 60. That's not great. Like, I hope you're happy. But doing that put me in a different space and a different frame of mind. So that allowed me to segue myself into a business partnership position at the job that I'd been at for a long time. So I've been working in home automation for 11 years. I've been a partial business owner within this field for 3 years now. And that's been awesome. Like, that's an experience, ups and downs, heartache, pain. One of the things that I dialed in on during my cryptocurrency experience was I figured out how to pay off just at about $30,000 in credit card debt without incurring any taxes via leveraging my cryptocurrency. So that started me down the road to where I'm at now, where I talk about financial strategies. My show, Future Financial Strategies, I do a lot of stuff where I'm testing things with money on there. And that kind of got me thinking outside of the traditional box of just go to work, get a paycheck, save some of it, and then just keep doing that until you're 65 and hopefully you get to retire. Like, it's just not efficient. And like, for people that are working people, the prospect of having to go to work and grind yourself to dirt until you're 65, just, it never set well with me. And the generations after me, they've pretty much given up on it. But the kicker there is you're still in the game. Like, you still have to play this game. So like, you can either be homeless or you can go to work. Like, those are the options that we have. And so for me, I don't like telling people or chastising them into going and chasing the bag. Like, I believe that you have to maximize what you have, or no matter what amount of income you have coming in, like, you're going to be in the same spot. Like, zero is zero. If your bank account is at zero and you make $100,000 a year, or you're over six figures, that's still zero. If you're making $30,000 a year, that zero is the same zero. The person who makes more money just has more toys, most likely. But zero is zero. Like, something bad happens, they can't go to work, you can't continue producing that income. You're out of the game. Like, and one of the things that, I'm sorry for ranting. Is this okay if I'm taking too long? Just like blink twice if I need to shut up. One of the things that they tell you, especially, I mean, I know that this is going to be more of a conservative crowd. Like, kudos to you guys for having some brains. But one of the things that the left loves and liberals love to tell people, they like to break down that you're poor. So you shouldn't think this way. You shouldn't be trying. You should be having somebody come to save you. Not necessarily knowing what the saving is, but like, somebody else should come clean this mess up. I don't ascribe to that. But one of the things that they do tell people, which is true for a lot of people, is that you are 2 bad months away from being homeless. Yeah. And for most of you, if you're one of those people who lives at zero, you're 2 weeks. 2 weeks away from being homeless. And when I used to Uber, when I was side hustling, I had a guy who worked in construction just like me. Giving him an Uber, and he's like, yeah, I'm about to be able to get back into a place, and da-da-da-da. And like, he's had a similar injury to what I had. And he was like, literally, he was like, I had 2 bad weeks. And he was like, I make good money, and was homeless and was like able to navigate around, but he lost his home. 2 weeks. And that was somebody who was making $70,000 to $80,000 a year. Homeless. Oh, wow. Yeah. 2 weeks living at zero. And that's the reason that I'm very much, my channel is about financial strategies. Like, it's about maximizing what you have. And for those, because like, not everybody can just go jump into STEM. Like, I understand that. Like, I'm not a college graduate. I'm the smartest person who's dumb that I know. With money. That's my skill set, but it's the financial strategy of it. So like, there's not doors that are open to every single one of us that are open to some of these people who are your gurus that are telling you like, oh, you got to go to college, you got to go get into this, you got to go do this. And it's like, well, you could just find like a solid job. You could go get a trade skill. Some of us are more apt at that. Some of us are more inclined to do those things. And it's like, well, what about those guys? Like, they're also, if we all go get STEM jobs, there will be no STEM jobs. Like, there's just not room for everyone. So I focus heavily on maximizing what you have and ways to consistently keep your income building. So that way you have more ability to navigate, because like after you get to certain metrics, when it comes to wealth, stuff starts moving really fast, especially if you're making the right moves. But you got to get to that point to where the snowball's rolling. And that's not necessarily going to be going and getting a 6-figure job for everybody.
Exactly. And that's a really good point that you were making about the whether or not you make 6 figures or whether or not you make 20,000, zero is zero. And it reminds me of another quote that I've heard. You know, whenever something sticks out to me, and I'm like, "Ooh, yeah, that's a gold nugget," or a blue chip, as Coach Ray Adams would say. I don't know if you watch him or not.
Yes.
And so one thing I've heard that I've just seen to be true over and over again is that you cannot out earn poor spending habits.
Yes. Yep.
And so, like, I watched this documentary called Bitconned. It's on Netflix. And so you saw that?
Oh yeah. You know, I'm watching all the cryptocurrency or Bitcoin documentaries. I'm watching.
Yeah, what you said reminded me of it. And that guy was he was a scam artist, but
yeah.
he was saying in the documentary that stuck out to me was that he was like, yeah, we were making money hand over fist because he had that car rental thing, and then they started doing the Bitcoin thing, and he was like, the money was just coming in, but somehow it seemed to be going out just as fast. And I was living paycheck to paycheck. I had stuff that was past due. I had to file for bankruptcy, and it's like, people think that, if I just make more money, everything will be fine. If I can just get more overtime, if I can just do this, if I can just make $10,000 more, then I'll be fine. The problem is not your income, usually. The problem is outgo. You're wasteful. You're too immature with the finances. You have these stupid habits. You're impulsive. That is the problem. And no matter how much money you make, because like I'm sure you've seen how like half of people who make 6 figures live paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. And so it's not uncommon.
I mean, it is insane. And what's even more disturbing is like when you start knowing people like this. So like I've got family like that make $250,000 a year, and we are competing. I'm in competition with them and the net worth department. You make, like, imagine that somebody who makes multiple orders of magnitude more money than you, and you're in competition with them from a net worth perspective.
Now, what does that mean exactly?
So it's your net worth is if you take all the assets, anything of value that you own. Like me personally, I try to keep it. Like I'm a little bit stingy at it because like this is me being petty, but like I'll be like, you got to remove your house. Like you live in your house is an investment. Like you ain't going to eat your house. You'll lose your house. So take your house off that. But it's all of the things that you have that are of value. And then all of the debt that you have, like whatever you owe. And then you take all the things that you have that are of value, you calculate up that value, and then you take all the debts that you owe and you subtract that from that number, and that's your net worth.
Oh, okay, I see.
Which means that like if you just like had to liquidate everything and it was like all assets and all expenses and like you had to balance that out, it'd be like if you balance out a checkbook that's your life, everything that you own. That's your net worth. And so a lot of people, the majority of that is tied up in their house that they live in. And it's like you're paying for this house, like you live in this house, which means that like if it was a wash, now you got to move. You got to go somewhere else and hope there's some money left over.
Yeah.
So that's because like most people don't use their homes as an investment. Like my house is actually an investment. Meaning I have roommates. Like I house hack my house. Like I don't have kids. It's just me. So like there's no reason for me to just go get a place and be in it by myself, because then I would have to pay for it by myself. Like that just don't make sense to me. But
right.
So like that is one of the reasons I'm I have the ability to invest the way that I do is I don't have the same expenses as a normal person. Like when you look at that and you go, okay, cash flow coming in, it's like I get most of mine. like it's just me. And you got some bills I don't have that are expensive. Like but yeah, it's and see, like one of those things, like something as simple as starting to track that, is even if you don't have money, like that's how I jump started learning all this stuff. Because at 25, I did my net worth and found out that I was worth negative about $40,000 at the time of like me doing it. And I'm just like, bro, like if I die, that's a vacuum. That's a vacuum for somebody. Like somebody's got to pay for that. Like that, like I don't necessarily think that people are doing fish fries because they got to get people in the ground. It's real inexpensive to bury somebody or get them cremated. I'm honestly think that these people are dying with debt and they're going after the next of kin and they're going, hey, like, yeah, this dude died, but like this bill though.
Can they do that unless you sign that you are willing to do that? Like, I know that you can do that for your college loans. Like you can say, hey, when I die, transfer this to my kids, which I think is horrible.
Yeah, it's horrible. It is horrible. I mean, think about stuff like this. Like one of the key experiences that I had when I was 16, my grandmother passed. And my grandmother is the reason that I exist today. Like first and foremost. But it was something that that generation needed to be held accountable for. She wanted to make sure she got to see the entire family happy and doing well before she died. And she was dying from cancer. So what she did was she took out a very large reverse mortgage on the house. Now, what a reverse mortgage is, for those of you who don't know, it's in the name. So the bank gives you money, and then they just start tacking money onto your house. So now you're even more in debt on your home that you own. And you can have them just start kicking you out a check and adding it onto the back end of the house. And so she did that. And as she was dying, like, you know, like stuff was good. Like she still wanted to go out and do these big shopping sprees. She was throwing parties for the family, all the reunions. She took care of everything. She was flying people in, doing all this stuff. And including helping pay for my private school, like bunch of stuff. But this is somebody who raised me my entire life, that home was going to be my inheritance. She was like, she used to make me mow the grass. And like one of the things she used to always tell me, you got to learn how to take care of this place because this is going to be yours one day. You're going to be responsible for this. Like you got to learn how to mow the grass. You need to know how to mow that grass out there. Like this is going to be yours. From a very young age, every time I was over there, she was like, this is yours. Like this is going to be you. And so when she passed, my grandfather had a stroke on his way back up here to try to like see her before she passed. Didn't make it. Another horrible story. They thought he was going to pass as well. And he didn't. So he took over the house next to kin. They were still married. So now it's his house. He can't take care of the house. House falls into disarray. Then we find out about this reverse mortgage that was on the house. And nobody in the family had the funds to like maintain their home and then keep this home. And like, I wasn't in a position to do it either. This is like a few years after she died. It was a couple year process, but nobody in my family talks about money. So no one said anything to anybody. It wasn't like, hey, yo, can we like pull some resources to like see if we can keep this? Like, can we do this to see if we can like make this work out? Like everybody kick in. That wasn't even an option. The bank just came and took the house. So, okay. Cause I don't know about reverse mortgages. I've only ever heard them, you know, when you go to your parents' house and they're watching The Price is Right. Yeah. So does that only apply to people who have not finished paying off their house, or? Well, no, it's a tactic. So it's, instead of you paying the mortgage, they're giving you money and adding to what you owe. How does that work? How can they do that? They let people do it. I mean, you can like now the thing that you would normally see would be a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. It'd be something like that, which is similar, but it's like you can still lose your house in a HELOC, but like my grandmother got a reverse mortgage, and like I don't even know if they do those anymore because this would have been when I was 16, so that was back in like 2000. Actually, you know when it was? That's super interesting. So when she took that out, that was during the beginning of the housing crisis when they were giving out all those bad loans on homes. Okay. And, you know, to this day, I always tell people I was never affected by that. And I definitely was. And I didn't even realize it because I didn't lose the house. Like, she lost the house. I was upset about it, but I'm like, that didn't happen to me. But during that time period where they were giving out all those bad loans, like, that's a very bad loan. It's a predatory loan.
Yeah, the Big Short.
Yeah. And so when she passed, that loan fell to my grandfather, who wasn't making any income at that point, and the family didn't have the resources or didn't think to see if we could pool the resources to like float it, because the house was also in disrepair. So they ended up deciding to let it go. And yeah, and then we get to drive by there every once in a while because it's in the city I live in. So like every once in a blue, I'll just go by there and be upset that somebody lives there because like someone bought it, like it got rehab. There's a family that lives there now.
Mm.
And
yeah,
it's like
our house.
Oh yeah. I'm just like, yeah, that was supposed to be my house, and here we are. Like, but yeah, and so experiencing stuff like that, like it put finance and money and like that stuff at the front of my mind, even though I didn't really get serious about anything that I was learning until I was 25. Mm-hmm. But those seeds, I'm like, at 25, I was like, I'm going to end up just like that. I'm going to end up in a situation like that. Like, I'm going to end up hurting myself and not being able to take the time to recover. Like, I mean, the surgery that I'm recovering from right now, like I didn't work for a month. And then my head gasket on my car just blew. That was $5,000 after the surgery expenses. Like, it's like being able to like take those life hits, because like, honestly, that could have been that 2 months right there. Like being not able to work. Like if I would have lost my job, like if I wouldn't have been in a partnership position and they were just like, cool, we can lay you off without giving you some money. You know what I'm saying? Like we're just going to let you go. Like we're not going to pay you.
Yeah.
And then coming back, immediately having your car $5,000 after a surgery that was all like, it was, well, when I initially went in, because like I'm on a high deductible plan, so that was $3,000 before they cut me up.
Oh wow. Yeah,
so like that's what I'm saying. Like that's how that 2 months could easily, like if it was somebody else, like who didn't have their finances in order, that's homeless.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like that could be it. Like you're down for a month, you can't work. You can't do anything. Like I couldn't do any side hustles. I couldn't Uber. I couldn't drive. I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
For a month. And then coming back and then being on light duty. And luckily I kept forcing if you come back and you're on light duty and they're just like, cool, we got limited work for you. So like now you don't even have full income coming in. Plus medical bills. Then your car breaks. Major car repair.
Yeah, and it happened so fast. Yeah. And another tip, as you continue to talk, all these different little money things keep popping into my head. And one thing that I also learned in Amway was that they would say that most people are 4 tires away from financial catastrophe.
Yep.
And most people not even 4.
No, not well. I remember when I was younger, a tire. Like, I don't know how I'm going to financially recover from that. It's just like, bro, because it's never just one. You get in there, you gonna need at least 2 so that the tires are at the same level. Like yeah, no, it's, I understand fully that money can't buy happiness, and I'll never posit that it can. But like, if you're gonna be depressed either way, you better off being depressed with money. Like it's just more opportunity, man. Like you at least go be sad and do something. It's not the be all end all, but it does pay for everything. Fortunately or unfortunately, like our society runs on money. Like if you wanna move away from Hollyweird, you know who's stuck there dealing with those policies that they voted for? All the poor people.
Yeah.
Because they can't afford to leave. So now you just got to live in there infested with immigrants and crime, and you just got to deal with it because you can't afford to even go get another spot. You have nothing to sell. You were renting to begin with.
Yeah.
And your taxes are going up. Like it's just like people get stuck places. I mean, think about that. Like think about all the homeless people that you see every day, because there's a lot of them now because people getting evicted. those people ended up in a situation where they couldn't even afford a bus ticket or a plane ticket to get back to their families or to a support system of some sort. Because I'm not gonna posit that every homeless person we see is just orphaned and they have nobody. Like most of the time, there's people looking for these people, and there's the whole shame side of it. But like the reality of it is, like you couldn't afford a bus ticket or a plane ticket to get back. Like if you were homeless in your hometown, there's at least a chance your mom might see you.
Yeah.
Or somebody who knows you, like, oh, yo, I can give you. Like these people have nothing, and they're stuck where they're at. And I live in a place that has winter. Like this isn't a place where, like, I don't live in a city where you can afford to be homeless. Like people during the winter expire here regularly. Like it's a game of Survivor.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like it's not good because we have harsh winters. Also, summer is terrible. So we're under heat advisory right now. Like it's like you gonna melt and freeze. Like,
are you sure we're not neighbors?
Literally, hey, bro, the Midwest temperatures, bro. Like that's what it is. But yeah, like it's one of those things where like I always think about that because like as a man in this country, like there is no support system for me. So like when I see a homeless person, I'm like, if I don't make the appropriate moves because I did elect to not go to college and make things more difficult for myself, I'm like, that's where I live if I fuck this up.
Mm-hmm.
And I really ain't trying to live outside here. Like it's just the weather's. I'm like, I ain't built for that. Like spring and fall, I could be homeless, but like winter and summer, nope. Like not me.
Absolutely. And so, all right, well, springboarding right off of that. Right. So we have, you have 10 tips to help people stay off the streets.
I like that.
And so the first one that you sent me over here was pay yourself first. And so, I mean, it sounds self-explanatory, but just kind of give people a brief summary as to what you mean by that.
So that one is pretty simple. It's the most basic. It's probably the one that no matter what guru you talk to, I'm not a guru, by the way, but like all the gurus will agree, you got to pay yourself first, which means that like you have to take some money off the table to stash away, be it for an emergency, be it for investing, any of that. Like I normally me personally, I do things a little bit weird and counterintuitive. Like I don't keep money that's not active around, period, because inflation just makes you go slow pour. So like if you got a bunch of money in your bank account, that does not impress me because you're just losing money. Or not losing money, you're losing the ability to buy stuff. And what that means is as stuff gets more expensive, which we've all experienced over the past 5 years, you've noticed it. Normally it's 2%. No one notices 2%. It just creeps up. It's just like a slow simmer. Going into Coco Roro, they turned the heat up a lot. So you went to the store. I remember the first summer, 2019 into 2020. I'll never forget it. Used to go into Quick Trip, and I used to buy the Ben and Jerry's ice creams. They have like the little ice creams. I used to get them over COVID and go watch a movie. That was my treat for the movie. Beginning of 2019, it was $4. By the end of 2020, it was $8.
Holy smokes.
And they're like, it's still around there now. Like the prices never came down. And so like that was, I was like, oh geez. So it wasn't just the ice cream though. It's all the stuff that we really need. And our administration changes what they put in the basket of goods that they say we really need. But I'm talking like eggs, I'm talking meat, I'm talking cheese, any of your dairy products, juice of any kind, organic vegetables, the stuff that's supposed to be healthy for you, all of it got more expensive. Yeah. And the way that the thing that people don't understand a lot of times when it comes to inflation, because they're like, we're bringing inflation down, like prices are going to get better. Prices never go down. So like if you had inflation at 2% and then it jumps up 20% and then it goes down to 3% because they fixed it, you still pay 20% more. Now the price on that 20% more you were spending is only going up 3% now.
Yeah.
The price doesn't actually go back down ever. Like, the prices are what they are. Like, stuff is not going to get less expensive.
Yeah.
And when we see those spikes up, like, that's what people around the world experience regularly. We don't experience it here. But the fact that, like, it put it on your purview, like, you have to be able to gauge that, because now when you go to the store, instead of spending $50, you're spending $70 to $100. Mm-hmm. Well, if your budget was for 50, where are you at now? Like, oh, I keep all this money in the bank. Now you can buy less food.
Right.
The point from last year to this year, your bank account, the interest that they're giving you, it's just 5%, isn't beating inflation. So you can buy less food. So I personally don't save that way. Like, I always save in the market. I'm going to give shout out Wall Street Trapper for that one. He's the one who put me on that and got me thinking about that. Like, you get gems from people all over in these spaces. There's a lot of people that talk about money that both look like us, don't look like us. But I save in the market. So, like, I'll save in an index fund that just tracks the S&P 500, because that's money that I'm not going to be looking at any given point in time. And normally it's stair-stepping its way up because of inflation. Everything's getting more expensive, which includes your companies, includes your products. So they're making more money. Inflation benefits people that hold assets. It does not benefit people that hold cash. So but that starts with having something coming out of your check. Now, if you're starting off, when I started off, I was a zero bank account person. So I'm talking from diehard experience. And I got used to seeing my bank account at zero. Saving my first $100 was hard because I wasn't used to seeing money in there. And I'm like, oh, I can go buy something. I can go get some shoes. I can go out. I can go out to the club. I hit the club now. I got $100. Like, there were a lot of internal struggles and retraining the way that my brain worked to get used to even seeing $100 in my account. But that's where I started. I was like, I've got to set aside $100. What do I need to do that? Okay, like, I'm spending this whole check. I'm gonna clip off $10 every check. I'm just gonna clip off $10.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I hit $100, I felt pretty good about myself. I was like, like, maybe we can make this 15 or 20. Maybe we can scale this up a little bit. We got to start cleaning these messes up. We got to figure out how to get this debt cleared. We got to get our finances right. And it starts there. But, like, even like the way that this works now, it's much easier than when I started, because you can save your money in Cash App. Cash App lets you buy fractional shares of stock. So you can actually save in the market within Cash App and do it that way and still get some of those gains with a smaller pool of money. You don't have to go spend $400 to get a share of VOO or whatever you're trying to get.
Okay.
Referencing back, like, that's one of the tactics that we have now, is they've lowered the barrier of entry for people to be able to have exposure. Because if a stock goes up 10% and you got a fractional share of it, like, you still get the appreciation of that 10% for your fraction of it. Like, okay. it still works in your favor. So there's really no excuses now, because, like, I didn't have Cash App. Like, there was no ability. Like, you had to write a letter to a brokerage to get a mutual fund set up, and then, like, you didn't know how it worked. It was terrible. Like, I remember my first one was with T. Rowe Price. Like, I used to have to mail them checks to put money into it. It was like the most ridiculous thing ever. And, like, now everything's done from your phone. Like, super convenient. But that's my half of the spiel.
Okay, so yeah, about the importance of, because paying yourself first is, like you're saying, not just necessarily saving your money in your account, but trying to build it and actually beat the rate of inflation. So investing in some way, shape, or form.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. And so that's good. And that's very beneficial. And like you said, because I've been listening to you for a while, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not real big on Dave Ramsey, but he does
only because, and you're correct, I'm not. And there's two reasons, if you want me to explain.
Okay.
So I'll give you the first one. He is very anti-crypto, And he is one of those people who's preaching from the top of a mountain. Actually, there's 3 reasons. But he's very anti-crypto, and he gives terrible advice in regards to crypto because he doesn't understand how it works. And the entire time that he's been telling people to sell all their crypto, the price has been appreciating in order of magnitude. Like the average over the entire lifespan of Bitcoin is it's sitting at around, don't quote me, it's around 100% a year.
Interesting.
Who, like, from a financial perspective, like if I hated if I hated Lincoln Logs and somebody was like, yo, people are buying up all the Lincoln Logs and selling them on eBay for like 8 times the price. And then it just kept going up. And I'm like, buying Lincoln Logs is stupid. And it just kept going up. And then it gets to a point to where people are buying, they're like, yo, you know, them Lincoln Logs you could have bought when you told me to sell my Lincoln Logs. I can sell those Lincoln Logs for $1,000 a log now. And people are just buying them like hotcakes. I'm like, that's bad advice. He's old. Another issue is all of our gurus, we want to talk to the guys that look like Santa Claus or are super old or at the top of the mountain. His rhetoric, his plan hasn't changed since he started. Now, giving Dave Ramsey his credit, it is a good starting implementative strategy if you know nothing about finance and are financially completely illiterate.
Okay.
But it's not a place that you want to stay. And the reason you don't want to stay there is because Dave Ramsey is an advocate of paying cash for everything, including homes. Yeah. Now, if we've looked at the prices of houses and you're saving up cash for a house, unless you're getting like 20% raises every year, which most of us aren't. Most of y'all ain't even getting raises. Like, people are just withholding money. Everyone's selfish right now. You're never going to catch up to the price that you need to buy the house that you want. So a good example would be, okay, I'll give a great example. My house. I've been here for going on 6 years. Year 1, when I bought my house, I got this townhome for $100,000. Got a really good deal on it. I was originally talking about getting it at 120, and I worked my negotiation magic and negotiated down to $100,000. And so I bought this house for $100,000. Right now, I get letters all the time for this property. They're offering me between 161 and 195 sight unseen.
Wow.
Yeah, now imagine if you were trying to save up $100,000 cash to buy this house. And over this course of time, it's just gone up and up and up. Like, you're on a hedonic treadmill. Like, when stuff starts inflating and prices start skyrocketing, like, being in cash, that's what I'm talking about losing buying power. Because, like, you're like, yeah, I'm going to have $100,000. After the first year, you needed another $30,000 to get this house.
Right.
And it's only gotten worse. So, like, now it's like, geez, like, we climbed up to the top of the mountain. Like, you need another 30,000. Oh, while you were saving up that 30,000, you need another 40,000 now. Oh, and while you were saving up that 40,000, you might as well go ahead and throw another 50,000 on there because, like, you ain't there yet. And this is like, if your income isn't scaling at that level, you never get to purchase a house because you can't buy it outright.
Yeah.
And so those ideals in the environment that he grew up in make sense. Like, that was possible. That was possible pre 2019. I wouldn't have argued with him about it. I'll give him that. I'll give him up to 2019. But when you cross over into this environment where we're at currently, and you're still saying the same thing and not willing to budge on the fact that, like, yo, anyone who's listening to what you say, like, unless they're like a rocket scientist and they got like a 2-income household where they're both rocket scientists, so one of them can just save every dime they make, you're never buying a house cash. Like, it's just not going to be possible because the prices are going up. Your income's not going up to match the prices. So now you're constantly in a hedonic treadmill to where you got to save money, or you're just never going to eat until you get your house payment. And those two, it's the guru-itis. Like, once you get to that mountaintop and you're talking down to people, those people, because I'm not going to say that he's not rich. Dave Ramsey is a very wealthy man, But the thing that you got to understand is he can give bad advice until he dies. And it won't affect him because he's not dealing with this. We are. So he can go, oh yeah, just pay cash for everything. It's like, okay, like you make $30,000 a day. I'm sure you can just pay cash for all the stuff you want. Okay, great. But Joe Schmo, who's making $45,000 a year, that goes and busts his ass every day for 12 hours and then comes home and is tired, takes his boots off, his feet, toes are gnarled. He is not going to be able to ever save up to buy a $100,000 home because A, they've taken them away. They don't exist anymore. So like, what are those people supposed to do? And now you're talking about saving up $250,000. How do you do that when you make $40,000? You put two of you together, you make $90,000. So are you both not eating for a few years to get this house? Like, how does this work? How do you exist? Because you have to pay rent and rent's going up.
Right.
How does this? Food's going up. Gas is going up. Everything is getting more expensive and your income isn't matching it. How do you save up to hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy a house? Like, the math on that doesn't make sense. And it's not just that it doesn't make sense. It's impractical to look at it from that perspective unless you're so far up on the mountaintop that you don't understand how money works anymore.
Okay.
But the principles of what he teaches are useful. So like as a skeleton, if you have no skeleton, like you know nothing, that's a good place to start. But the stuff that mathematically doesn't make sense, I would chew the meat and spit out the bones on that. Because believing in the rhetoric and getting involved in the cult of Dave Ramsey, we all do it this way and this is how it is because you're part of a team now. Like that stuff, you're going to be trapped where you're at that point. Like now you can't evolve. Like those as a foundation, it's great, but it's supposed to evolve as your financial situation changes. Like that will definitely help you sort out a mess if you're in a mess right now. 100%. And I won't fault him for that. But beyond that, when you start talking about the efficiency and the efficacy of what he prescribes for like once you're out of the mess and like you're moving forward, don't make sense in the current economic environment that we're in, because if you're not beating inflation and stuff is skyrocketing in price and you're supposed to be paying for it in cash that you're saving, we got to figure, you have to account for that part, especially when you still have to live in a house. You still got to live somewhere, unless you're homeless or live outside, and you still have to eat. And those things are also jumping up at rapid clips for a little while there. And so we've got to stabilize where we're at because the prices, again, haven't gone down. They're just going up slower again. So that's my critique on that. Like, that's the reason I am not a fan, because it's just like, anyone who tells somebody to go do something that like you aren't going to make, like that isn't going away. Like I'd understand if like somebody called them up and was like, yo, I found this coin with a dog on it. Should I put all my life savings into it? I'd be like, you're an idiot. Like, don't do that. It's probably not a good idea. But when you're talking about something like Donald Trump literally just said that when he gets back into office, that we're going to have a strategic stockpile of Bitcoin, the country of America. Other countries are using this. States are using it within the United States to fix their pension funds because their performance is so bad. To tell somebody not to get involved in that, I'm just like, okay, so like you're like that's just horrible financial advice in my opinion. It's like I don't know. Like I don't like it when people tell people what to do from the mountaintop and then they're just like dead wrong based on math. It's like, well, I hope that person didn't actually listen to you. Like, because they lost an opportunity. They lost a bunch of money, and then the cash that they were sitting on can buy way less stuff. So, right. Yeah.
I gotcha. Okay, yeah. And I think that's a common issue with people. Like I was just watching a video the other day about how relatable YouTubers, when they start out, they become unrelatable because they become successful because their channel grew over the years. And now they just sound out of touch when they talk to people. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm just like you. And it's like, you were at the Met Gala. You're not just like you are. And so you're saying that like, it started good, but now he's just kind of lost touch with the average man.
Yeah. But I mean, but the framework, again, we gotta keep credit where credit's due. The framework can definitely help as a jump off point.
Mm-hmm.
That is good. I'm not going to contest the framework. Like, if you know nothing, it's better to start there than trying to figure it out on your own, especially if you're responsible.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with that, because I mean, just like how we started off is that truth is universal, and so the idea that okay, don't spend more than what you make. Okay, I have no qualms with that. That's
yeah.
Okay, and so you were saying that, like, okay, so you were just saying how he poses a very good skeleton, and so that kind of, I guess, jumps into our next tip that you gave, which was have a financial standard. And so, what would your skeleton for basic financial standard would be?
So this is an interesting one, and it's a little bit heady, it's a little bit nerdy, but I'll break that down. So a financial standard is, in America, we run on a dollar standard, right? We use dollars. You take your dollars, you go buy things. You take your dollar, you go buy stuff. Get dollars in, we get paid in dollars, we spend dollars. Everybody readily accepts dollars within this country. So America is on a dollar standard.
Mm-hmm.
Having a financial standard, for me, in the way that I look at it, is you have to have a base denomination. So there's people who like hoard gold. They're like, hey, if stuff collapses, I got this gold. Like, I put a little bit into gold every time I get paid. I get me a little piece of gold and I stack them up. And then every once in a while, I'll trade them up to a bigger piece of gold. And they have like a gold hoard. It's kind of like what your reserve is. That's going to be your standard. So in our Federal Reserve, even though our dollars are no longer backed by this stuff, we still have a Federal Reserve for when we're dealing with other countries, because other countries are like, yo, you better have something in there. Otherwise, we're not going to take your dollars. So they have a mix of things in there. They have gold, silver, precious metals. I think they do. They finagle and finesse the system with their T-bonds and stuff. And then they have assets that they purchase from other countries that are within the Federal Reserve as well. So for me, my standard personally is a Bitcoin standard, which means that any income that I have coming in, 5 to 10% of it gets cut to the side, and I buy Bitcoin with it, and I store that Bitcoin in cold storage, and like, I just have it because it consistently goes up in value. So that way, as a backstop for everything, I've got this nest egg of like, yo, like if things go bad, I have a thumb drive, which is the reason that I don't elect gold. Because like when I first started doing this, I started with silver because it was less expensive and I could get more than one coin at a time, and it made me feel good. But I have when I lived in a pretty bad, a sketchy. It wasn't bad. It was just sketchy. It was like hood adjacent neighborhood, and there was a couple of guys who worked at the gas station that we went to that had these hot pickles, and I think they were from Pakistan or something like that. But they were both doctors and they worked at the gas station. And like, we were talking to them about precious metals that day. And he was like, something you might want to consider is, if this country ever collapses, you're leaving here with nothing. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, when the country that we were in collapsed, he was like, we had all this stuff. Well, he was like, I was a doctor there. He was like, I was rich as far as that society was concerned. And he was like, when I got to the airport, we were robbed at the airport by the military. They took everything, including my shoes. Anything of value. Because like, if you're in a state of collapse, the people with the guns make the rules. So like, even if you get to leave, anything tangible that you have, because like, you got to consider, this place is collapsing. So like, those soldiers are still going to be stuck there. They're going, give me that, all of it. That bag of gold you have, you're not leaving with it. And it gets to the point where they will come and take it if they want to. So Bitcoin, you can't, like, even if I couldn't take my thumb drive, I could just go buy another one. I have my private key. I could set it up. Like, all I need is a computer wherever I get to. As long as I can get to a computer, I can get another thumb drive. Like, there's all of my wealth goes with me.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so that's the reason that I have that for a standard. Plus, it appreciates in value well past inflation. So like those dollars, even though I'm not spending them and they're just sitting there, I can buy more when I turn them back into dollars. When I turn the Bitcoin back into dollars, I can buy more stuff. So it hedges inflation for me. And so that's the standard that I have in my house. And like, that's outside of the month paying myself first. Like that's just a given. It's just like, if I come in and the paycheck's light, or actually the way that I do this is like my paycheck, I'll only do 5% just because like it's less money. But like all my other income streams, like if I'm getting income off of anything else, it's 10%. I'm like, cool, got to go buy Bitcoin with that. Like, what's it going to be this month? Like, we'll take that lump sum going to buy Bitcoin, because that was money that came from imaginary land. Like I didn't physically swing a hammer or have to do anything for it. So I'm like, 10% of that goes into the standard, and like we just don't look at it. And it's like, well, that was money that was coming in from nowhere anyway. But it constantly builds that pool. So that way, if I ever want to dip into it, if I'm looking at any length of time down the road, it's probably going to be worth a lot more than what I paid for it. So then I'm going, cool. Now when I pull this out, if I need it, I'm in a better environment than if I would have just sat this in the bank and had it getting 5%.
Right. So
it should be something other than dollars, in my opinion. Like it should be something that's a hedge. Like even if it's just gold, like if you're just using it here, gold, silver, those perform decently well. Like, I mean, at least it'll hold you at zero. You could also have an asset-based standard where you just invest in an index fund that follows the S&P 500. That would be another one that sits in there, because that at least would be 90% of the time would beat inflation. Like,
okay.
Yeah. And so when it comes to a standard, like that's what I'm talking about. It's like, hey, like what's something that like not including paying yourself first? Like this is like, yo, this is important. This is building up for the family. This is generational wealth. This is something that I'm gonna do this, and hopefully everything goes well. There's never an emergency where I need to touch that. It's a nugget for the family.
Oh, I see. Because I was originally thinking that the paying yourself first and the having the standard went hand in hand, because what you're paying yourself first with is the standard. So like you're saying, like when I first get my paycheck, I'm paying myself first in Bitcoin, but you're saying they're two separate things.
Two separate things. Like I do, the standard is I'm pulling that off, and like that's something that's never getting touched. Like the pay yourself first, like that money gets invested. That's opportunity funds. That's like funding the next property. Gotcha. Funding like stuff that's active, that's going to make me money. Like that's active money. And like your emergency fund, that stuff. But like the standard is like you cut a little chip off the side every paycheck, every time you have money come in. And like that goes in, and that's the way that I look at that, is like that's the store of value for your family. Like that is something that like last resort. Like you don't touch that. Like you about to die. Like you're about to lose the house. Okay, this is the emergency. But like if we gonna sell some stuff, we selling everything before we touch this. Like this is supposed to be. So you're about you've had your child. Like that's for your child. That's to make sure that they're set.
Gotcha.
That's that type of standard. But I mean, another way that you could look at this is having a standard within your family as well. Like what's passed on to the next generation? Because, you know, like I love studying cultures. One of the cultures that they have within the Jewish faith is they're expected by the time your kid has his bat mitzvah, he's supposed to know the skill of the father. Like you have taught him a skill. That's an expectation. That's a standard. And you think that like, and it's very frowned upon. Like if you have a kid that's just worthless, like you didn't teach him anything, like he doesn't know how to do anything, like he doesn't family business, nothing, no trade, no nothing. Like he's not of use to the collective. that could be another like having a financial standard. Like actually, that's a good split off for this. I have, for my great nieces and nephews, I'm starting to do portfolios for them where I buy them one share a year. And then when they turn 10, they're going to come start learning how to manage that portfolio with me. And I'm going to teach them how to do that. And then when they turn 18, like if they've gone through the process and like they're keeping up with their meetings and like we're managing those portfolios, I'm going to give them.
Okay.
And so they'll have 18 years total. Like obviously the first 10 I'll be doing it for them, but like at 10 I'll be like, yo, you need to figure out your schedule. You need to come see me once a month so we can talk about what we're doing with this, or you're not getting it. And so it'll be my way of forcing them to have that skill, because you'll have 18 years of investing with compound interest and all that fun stuff, right? With me giving you a share a month, like what are we buying this month? And then when you turn 18, you'll have a portfolio that's probably going to be pretty decently sized, right? And you know how to manage a portfolio. So like when that kid goes to college, if he decides to have a trade, he knows how to manage money and knows how money works. So the standard that I'm implementing for my family by doing this, the financial standard is everyone who graduates knows how to manage a portfolio. Like, you know how money works. So you can go get a job as long as you're getting income. You should be able to handle this.
Right.
And you also have a nest egg of like, you're not just starting at zero and having to start from scratch every time. Like, they're getting a mini inheritance as soon as they graduate that they can be responsible for. And it's like, cool. Like, if you went through all the steps and like, you know how to manage this and then you fumble the bag, like, that's on you. Don't come ask me for nothing. Like, honestly, like I'll not only am I mad at you, I'm not going to help you.
Okay. And so, I wanted to pull up this verse because what you were saying reminded me of this, which is Proverbs 13:22, which says, "A good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just." And yeah, what you're talking about with this standard is, this is not for you. This is for the next generation or the next generation after that. And so, this is just such a good practice. And so many people, they never even get to think like this and talk like this because they're still focusing on themselves. They're in their 50s, 60s trying to scramble and pull something together. They don't have time to be thinking about you and your kids and their financial stability because they're, and completely in the thick of it. And so this is a very good principle about being mindful and being so well and so on top of your finances that you can think about others and that you can lay up for your grandchildren. So yes.
Well, I was going to add one more thing. It's like when you're literally relegated to your house, yourself, or the people that you create, like the reason that a lot of, from a cultural standpoint, that we're getting our lunch ate by literally everybody else is because they are working as collectives. They're working within themselves. They're working as groups. They're working as a family unit. Like I have one of my mentors. It's him and his brother. And then I think one of their cousins that's also of the same mindset. And that family's wealth, like they've gotten massive generational wealth, but like they work amongst the families. Now, each of the individual families are set, but like they'll go in and they'll do like $500,000 to $1 million commercial projects as a family with those brothers like handling it. And so it's not just one person going, oh, I'm independently wealthy, because like families, eventually you will work yourself into a position where somebody's going to be successful at something. But if you don't have that standard, you just have this one errant person off over here doing their thing that has money. And then everybody else is down bad and they're not working together and they're not using, I know people hate to say it, they're not using their nepotism to like get their people into position. It's like, why? Yeah. Everyone else is doing this. Everyone else is setting things up for themselves and their kids. So it's it's a start. I mean, it's an experiment. We'll see how it works. Like, but I mean, it's at least I tried. Right?
Yeah, there are people who aren't even doing half of that, and so
Yeah.
kudos to you for being even mindful of that. Makes me think about what I need to be doing for my niece, who will be turning, I think, 12 this year.
Well, I mean, the other thing is, I'm very much I'm very callous about how I do things, and I'm like, I can't help it. I can't help adults. Like, I can't. I don't think that. I think that, like, after a certain point, I was like, if you're trying to institute a change, like where you're trying to like dramatically change a family, you can't go beat stuff into people's heads that have a way that they're doing things. It's like, yo, you can come talk to me if you want the game, but like if you're not, then I'm just going to skip all of you where the baby's at. I'll focus on them, and I'll let you know what I'm doing. Like my cousin, the one who I set the first one up for because he just had his kid. I showed him, like, when we went to my mom's birthday, he came for that, and I was like, yo, like, this is gonna be for your daughter. Just so you know, like, she at 10 years old, she's gonna have to come start figuring out how this works, but she goes through the paces and figures out how it works. Like, this money's gonna be hers, and it's gonna be bigger than what it is now. Oh, okay, that's cool. I'm like, all right, cool. Like, because I'm just like, you're gonna do what you're gonna do. Like, I love you, but I don't have time to force you to change what you're doing. Like, when the time comes, you can talk to me. But until then, like, my focus is on the babies. I'm like, I can fix this one. I can maybe institute a change over here, and then they'll understand and they'll do the same thing. And then, like, if you can replicate the action that way because they grew up with it, then you can have a change where it's like, hey, this is how our family works. Like, we all work together.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's another biblical principle, not in regards to money, but just in regards to not wasting your time. And it's, don't cast your pearls before swine, and don't give that unto the dogs.
Yep.
And also, he who has ears, let him hear. And
Yep.
so, a lot of the time when Jesus was talking, he would say things and people would be like, that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand. I'm offended by that. And he'd be like, okay.
You still got to wake up you tomorrow. Okay. That's cool.
So yeah, you just can't save everybody, and that's just the fact of the matter.
Yeah.
And so going into our next point that you had, you said maximize what you have before chasing the bag. And so elaborate a bit on that as to, and maybe, have some boomer people watching. So what do you mean exactly by the bag?
So by the bag, I mean, before you go, I need to have more income. I need to go get a job that pays me more money. We talked about this a little bit ago, but like, if you're in a hole, it's not necessarily that you just need more money. It's your spending habits. So like, if you can't figure out your finances where you're at currently, going and getting more money isn't going to fix anything that you're doing right now, because your habits that you have developed with wherever you're at. So say, for instance, you're making what the average person makes, like $45,000, $50,000. And you're having issues at $45,000, $50,000. There's some things that you got to evaluate. Like, are you living a lifestyle that is allowing you to do the things that you want to do? Are these expenses that are absolutely necessary? And by absolutely necessary, I mean, like, if you're renting a place and you're like, well, I got to get more because I'm just paying so much in rent. And it's like, okay, you got like a 2-bedroom apartment with 2 bathrooms and you just live in there so that you can say you live in there. Do you need to live like that?
Right.
Is that necessary for one person by themselves? Could you have a roommate?
Right.
Like, these are, do you need to do these things? Like, I'm not going to tell you to just eat ramen noodles and just live off lattes, but like, you got to like really start looking at if you're in a hole, because as you go get more money, you're just going to get, that hole's just going to expand with the money in most cases. Like, I've seen very few people that have gotten in a situation where they were making a low amount of money and then gotten into a position where they were making an order of magnitude more money, because we see that in my business all the time. We'll recruit people out of anywhere, and they'll get the more money, and then they're still broke. And you're just like, oh, well, like you're making twice what you were making. Yeah, well, like now I got to go do this. Now I can do this. I'm going to take my girl here now. And you're like, you just spend money. Like your MO is you spend every dime that you have. Like you've got to fix that before you can save money. Like you can't do anything besides spend money. So while I am an advocate for going and getting more money and chasing the bag, I am. But I'm saying if you're chasing the bag and you haven't figured out your financial situation yet, like if you're not capable of getting a raise and saving the raise, like if you get a raise, next thing you know, you done spent all that money too. Like now your check's bigger and you're still broke. That's not an income issue. And a lot of gurus will tell you it is. That's a you don't have your finances in order issue.
Yeah,
because
inside the house.
Yeah. So I tell people all the time, I'm like, get yourself lined out, get a budget if you need it, figure out your finances, figure out how you're going to navigate, figure out where you're going, figure out what you want, what's your lifestyle that you want, figure that out. Then go chase the bag, because then it's like if you overshoot, now you got a whole bunch of money that you can make moves with. And you're not worried about, oh, I got to go get a new car because I got a raise. I got to go get a bigger apartment because I got a raise. I got to go try and buy a house that I can't afford because I got a raise. Like you've got to be able to go, I got a raise. I got more money that I can build wealth with. I got a raise. I got more money I can invest.
That's right.
Like I can live exactly how I'm living right now, and I'm good. I'm comfortable. I can do most of the stuff that I want. Now when these raises come in, now that I've got this sorted out, everything can just go into investments so that I can figure out a way to make this amount of money without having to go there.
Exactly. Okay, so that brings to mind another verse, which is, let me pull this up here. Is Ecclesiastes 5:10, and that says, he that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver, or he that loveth abundance with increase, this is also vanity. And so if you love abundance, then you are not going to be satisfied with increase, because you can never satisfy all of the things that you could possibly want. Money is endless. Even if you make more, even if you make double, you start making triple, you win the lottery, it's never endless. And if you just are completely succumb and you do not have control over yourself and what you want, then you're never going to be satisfied with it.
Yep.
And so very good. I mean, this is probably my favorite tip, because I think that this is so true, and this is where so many people don't get it. And I just think, like, I would say that this is probably, in my opinion, but what do I know, that this is like the fundamental, like this is the thing that you have to understand first before you can move forward in any regard when it comes to saving your money, because you can't save money if you are only ever spending it. And so it's like, you can't pay yourself first if you don't have control over how much you're spending. You can't have a financial standard if you have no control over how you're spending your money. And then we're going to go through the other ones. But, the next one is ignore the Joneses. Well, you're not going to ignore the Joneses. You don't have control over your spending habits. And so you can't do anything until you do that. And so I would say that is the bedrock of building financial stability in any regard.
100%. And ignore the Joneses. That one speaks for itself. Like, we live in a microwave social media era, and this isn't hard for me now that I know. But for those of you that don't know, most of these people are broken lying. like it's just the truth. Like, most of these dudes, because if you just think about the statistical averages of some of the stuff that some of the people on these panels say, everybody makes six figures in these YouTube streets. Everybody. Like, hold on. I want an accurate number. Hold on one second.
And if you want to share your screen too, you can do that as well if you want.
Hold on. I can quote this one because the AI is going to tell me. So this is from 2022, but in 2022, 37.1% of U.S. households earned at least $100,000, which put them in the top 20%, 24% of the U.S. population, 37%. Now, that's including everyone, everybody. Now, if you start breaking out by race, I mean, like, those numbers start getting abysmal.
Don't do that.
Yeah. So a lot of these people are going into debt. They're making horrible financial decisions to be seen at these events. Oh, I got to get seen here so I can get a picture with so-and-so because the guru showed up and I'm out here. But like behind the scenes, they're broke, talking about they probably need to move back in with their parents, but they're going to spend $1,000 to go be seen, to go do some networking when they're broke. And they'll rub it in your face. So they're going to take the pictures. They're not going to tell you like, yo, I made a terrible financial decision. I might not ever recover from this, but I'm here. They're going to tell you like, yo, look at me. I'm out here. I'm out here in these streets. I'm moving and shaking. I'm doing something. It really got set in. One of my mentors here in town, we were at his house and he lives in a historic area of town and the houses are super expensive. And he was telling me, he was like, yeah, he was like, my neighbor back there. It was like, he just took his family on their yearly vacation to Cabo. He's up to his eyeballs in debt and doesn't know how he's going to pay for it. But they went. I'm like, what? He was like, yeah. He was like, most of these people live around me. He was like, they're broke. I was like, what do you mean? Like, this is a dope neighborhood. Like, they got the car. It was like, none of that shit's paid for. Sorry for cursing. But none of it's paid for. Like, and that's the thing. It's like, you're looking at an illusion because most people are not going to take you behind the scenes, show you what their brokerage account looks like, show you what their assets look like, or let you know how many payments they have left on all those flashy cars that they rub in your face. And they're liars. They're putting up an appearance to look like they're doing something versus doing something. And people fall for that, and then they go out and start consuming and doing the same thing. And it's like, if you're going to focus on looking like you're doing something, like you just wanted the stuff, like you didn't want to be rich, you just want to look rich, which is different.
Yeah.
Like there's plenty of wealthy people. And I'll tell you this, most of the people that I know, because from my business side of things, I am around a bunch of multimillionaires. None of them have YouTube channels. Not a single one. It's crazy. Okay. It is crazy. And, you know, like every once in a while, I have a couple of them that I'll send stuff that I'll send and just be like, hey, like, am I off on this? And they'll tell me straight up. They'll be like, I cannot believe that you're saying this publicly and just telling people this stuff for free. He's like, you should not tell people this for free. I was like, well, nobody's going to listen to me. They're just like, no, but seriously, like you shouldn't be telling people this stuff. Like you shouldn't be showing them how to do this. And that's from people that are in the game that are successful at it. They're just like, I cannot believe that you're doing this for free.
Not the
like, you know how much? What?
I said, not the gatekeepers.
Well, it's not just that. It's just like, you know, so after you get to a certain amount, especially within organizations, they start putting you with wealth managers. Like once you start, like my relative that makes $250,000, she, like, once she got C-suite and she became VP of a company, they were like, yo, like, you're getting this is your raise, like, this is your pay scale, this is your benefits package. Cause like I helped her look through her benefits package. And then they were like, here, this is the wealth manager. We're going to have this dude reach out to you. Like, we got a wealth manager here to like kind of help you manage this shit. Cause like you're making a lot of money now. Right. So like there is a gate that's being kept. And it's generally like you don't even have access or know this side of the stuff from like the strategic perspective until you get to a certain income level. Then they start filtering you in here. Or if you are an avid investor and you build up your brokerage account, after you get to certain levels within those accounts, like you have a certain amount of assets that you're managing, they also start tapping in and being like, hey, like, well, we want to talk to you. Like, this account's growing pretty quick. Like, you're making some moves here. Like, what's going on? But you have to show first. Like, they don't deal with people that during the grind. They sit at the finish line and wait for the winners to show up, and then they'll help you. Like after, like no one helps you when you're starting out. And so a lot of these guys had to get to a certain income level to even start having these conversations. And then your wealth managers aren't having the conversation from the perspective that I'm having it, because I just like testing stuff. I'm like, let's see if it works. Like, let's just do the math on it and see like what happens. I'm like, cool, this works. This doesn't work. This isn't as effective for me, but like, this is how it worked. And those people aren't doing that either. They're going, hey, we want to get you into this box. And like the guy who watched my channel that I send the content to every once in a while, he argued with me for 2 years about Bitcoin. I was like, you're going to lose all your money. You're going to lose everything. Every time I talked to him until he bought. And then he was just like, yo, like, I got some Bitcoin. I'm like, oh, you did? And he was like, I hate to say it, and I never have to say this, but you were right. I was like, thank you. You know what I'm saying? Like, but like 2 years heavy, like the dude was like, you're going to lose every dime that you like, you need to get into something else. Like you need to do anything else. And I'm pretty sure he was talking to his wealth advisor about it, and then just started looking at the numbers and was like, yo, this kid's onto something. And so it's not that they're necessarily well, I guess it is gatekeeping, because it's just like, I mean, obviously if everybody was rich, then there's no more rich people. And like, that probably wouldn't feel good for them. But the reality of it is a lot of people aren't capable of breaking their programming. So my content's there for the people that are kind of getting that glint. Like I'm pulling as many people out of that financial matrix as possible. And so like, I'm just going, hey, here are the tools. This is my experience with it. Like most of the on my channel, I don't tell anyone to do anything. I'm literally just documenting the experiments that I'm doing with my finances. I'm like, yo, like this is where I'm at right now. Like this is what I'm doing. Like these are the things that are going on. Here are the results. Like this is a thing that I really like. It worked really well. It's working well for me. Like check it out. But like, I don't have a set prescription, because I understand that personal finance is something that gets broken down to the individual, because nobody's in the exact same financial situation, no matter how close they are. Right. Like they're never the exact same. Like you have a family, you have a husband, you have a child that's coming. Your perspective on your risk tolerance, the way that you're going to look at stuff is totally different, because you have variables that I don't have. So I can't speak to your situation on what tools you should use. But what I can do is test all of them and give you something that you can see. And you can go, I don't really want to mess with that, but this could work. This might be useful. This could change some stuff. Because the one thing that we do have in common is we all have a limited time here. Yeah. So like that comes for all of us. So you can go from that perspective and you go, okay, cool. Like this is what we're trying to do within this amount of time, out of the tools that we have available that we can use. What's going to help us get to our goal as quickly as possible.
Right. And I guess my issue with, gatekeeping in general is that it comes from this idea, this false idea of too much optimism in the average person, which is you can't tell everybody everything, because then everybody's going to do it. And it's like, no.
Like, no, they're not. They're definitely not.
Yeah. Your YouTube channel is, it's free like everybody else. Going signing on to youtube.com is free. And most people have phones. I remember I saw this video. I was watching a short on YouTube just one day, and it was like a recipe or something. And this girl, she was homeless, and she was like, oh man, I'm homeless. I look forward to making this one day in my new home. And people were like, how do you have a cell phone if you're homeless? But you can beg people, like, I'm coming from my perspective, of me being a fundamentalist. And I'm like, I go to people's door. I present the gospel to them. I'm like, please believe this. I want to give you this information. It's free. Just believe it. And they're like, no. And it's like, so it's like, there's no need to gatekeep, because people who are stupid are never going to accept it regardless.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
Oh man. So going, I guess, bringing it full circle, don't be deluded, and friends, don't be don't fall for the gimmick that you see on social media of these people are living it up. These people are having their best life. And these people are just, they're so much better than you. They have their finances under control and they're wealthy and they're thriving. Friends, it's a hoax. And here to full transparency, I think it was 2019. I bought a car that was my favorite car, even to this day. It was a Chevy Trax, which is not a very luxurious car, but I just love compact SUVs. I don't know why. It was a compact SUV. It was white. It was new. It was beautiful. I loved it. It was great until it got repossessed.
Oh
no! I posted all the pictures and I had it on my story. And when I got it, didn't really tell anybody when it got taken away from me. And so, I'm sure, some people I went to high school with maybe saw that and they were like, wow, she's really doing well.
Yeah.
And I wasn't with those $500 a month payments. And it was too much.
Oh no.
So it is still haunting me to this day. And so don't buy the hype, folks. It's an illusion. It's a masquerade. It's smoke and mirrors. Like you said, with the person that his neighbor is in Cabo and he's like completely in the red, and it looks like he's having a great time.
And that's like the conversation that they're having, like with their neighbors, like when it's like guys' night and they're just having a beer, just like, I don't know how I'm gonna pay for this. Like, like, and his wife don't know.
That's not where you want to be.
No, it's like, what are you gonna do? You're just gonna come home one day and be like, yo, we moved over across the road where it's not so nice. Like, yeah, no, like it's the whole premise of it is to get you to spend, because that's how the wealthy stay wealthy, is they spend less. Well, they're in a situation where they're on the receiving end of those dollars. And that's the name of the game. It's like there's two sides of this board. There's the people who spend money, and then there's the people who are buying up all the assets and not spending as much money until they can. But like the people who spend money are putting the money into the hands of the people who are hoarding assets. And those are decisions. Like, that's not necessarily a good or a bad. Like, there's times to spend money. When you eat, you have to spend money. But the person who owns the stock in Chipotle is on the receiving end of those dollars. When you spend that money, they're getting paid. And so it's if you're consuming more than what you're building your wealth base as, like, you're on the wrong side of the board on that. Right.
And so that is for ignore the Joneses. And so the next one is what we've kind of been touching on is that money is a tool / energy / opportunity. And so like you were just saying about the person who has the stock in Chipotle, is doing something more with their finances and their resources than the person who just spends their money, even though we all got to eat, of course.
Right.
So like another example, I guess, would be like going to Costco to buy your food. You got to have food in your house, but the person who has stock in Costco is making better moves. So elaborate on that for, I guess, even more from what you said.
So the reason I had to parse these out, and there's 3 of them, is because it's the truth. Like, a lot of people are like, we'll talk to people that are really into finance and you're just sorry. Oh, okay. I thought there was a dog in my house. I was like, oh Lord. I was like real concerned. I was like, where are my cats? Like, what is going on in here?
Oh my goodness.
Mailman. Like, good God. I was concerned. I hope y'all saw that too, because I was like, I don't have a dog. Like, why is it so close?
Oh my goodness.
But people will chastise people who are either understanding, trying to understand, or in the game of money. And they'll be like, oh, well, money's everything. Money's your God. Money's this. And it's like, no, it's our ability to do stuff. And like, once you disseminate it down to these 3 things, I think that it's a lot easier to not be emotionally tied to your investment decisions. So like when I see stuff go up in value, it doesn't necessarily affect me the same way that it affects people who like are really tied to the money's everything. My brokerage account's in the red. Like I can't live like this. Like I'm upset. Like people who get upset at their investments. It's crazy to me. So it literally is just a tool. It is, because in and of itself, like if we decide that the dollar's worth zero and it's worth zero, it's not going to be everything to you anymore. You're going to figure out what you need to do to go get your Big Mac, and you're going to get that, and then that's going to be what's everything to you at that point. And it changes very fast. Like the means of trade changes very fast, especially when people go, "Hey, this is worth nothing anymore." It's borderline immediate. Like people are like, "Get this away from me. What can we trade for a loaf of bread? I'm hungry."
Mm-hmm.
Money is also stored energy. Think about it. You go to work for a paycheck.
Exactly.
That's your energy is expended, and they give you those dollars. When you give those dollars to the worker at Chipotle, he expends energy to give you and make your burrito the way that you want it. Stored energy of people. So the more that you have of it, that's a lot of stored energy that you have, which leads to my the third part of it, which is opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I'm talking to people, I have to like, this is one of the things that I always break down. They're like, "Oh, well, money can't buy you happiness." I'm like, yeah, but if I'm miserable, literally in the space that I am, money can remove me from that space.
Yeah.
I have the opportunity to go exist wherever I want. I have the opportunity to go, I can be across town. If I don't like the state that I'm in, I have the opportunity to leave. Like I can go take that money, get on a plane, book a flight, go somewhere else. If it's a financial situation, because it doesn't buy you happiness, but it can buy you a mediocre of peace. When you don't have people calling asking, "Hey, you owe us money. Where's this bill?" Letters coming in constantly. Mailbox is full of them. "You owe us money. You owe us money. You owe us money. You owe us money." Think you're sleeping good at night at that point? No. A person in debt doesn't sleep as good as a person who's debt free. Yeah. Hands down. Like you are not going to tell me any different. Or a person who's managing debt in an appropriate fashion. Those are two totally different things to know. Like you screwed your credit up. Everybody wants their money back tomorrow. Your phone's blowing up all day and your mailbox is full of letters. Like you're not sleeping good because they call you at all hours of the night now. Like, so it's the opportunity. A person who has more money has more opportunity. Like you're going to have the ability to go, the ability to be, the ability to stay. When they raise the rent, you have the ability to choose whether you want to stay or whether if you don't have money, now you're moving 4 times over COVID because buildings are getting bought out and they're raising the rents and you can't afford it because you're living hand to mouth. That's all that money is. It's just the ability to go do stuff, stored energy, or a tool. Like beyond that, like any belief beyond that is not serving of what the game is. And it generally speaking is going to keep you broke. Like it's just what it is.
Right. Yeah. And I love the first point is that, that money is a tool. And I think that, so many people see money as the ends, like they work to just have money. They're like, I just need money. And it's like, money should be your means to an end.
Yep.
Your money should be working for you just as much as you're working for it. When you change your perspective in that way of looking at money, like, I just have to have money because, money is the answer. When you're like, no, I need to have, like you were saying, assets, or I need to have stocks, or I guess stocks is considered assets.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I need to have these things in place so that way my money is not the end all be all, but these things that I have that are worth more money than I would have had that been my end goal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's really important. Is just I feel like all of these kind of have the same perspective of you have to change your outlook on money at the end of the day. Is that because most people think like most people, and most people are broke. So obviously something wrong. And so you can change your perspective to think more like somebody who is in the top 12% or higher, then you can start, making better moves because you're seeing money in a whole different light.
Yep. Agreed. I like that.
Okay. And then so our next one is $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. And I think, most people would understand that from what you were saying earlier about your Ben and Jerry's pints and how they skyrocketed in barely a year's time. But yeah, you can elaborate more on that.
So it ties back to a concept that's called the time value of money. It's a concept that most people who are in hedge funds, most wealthy people have grasped the concept of, and it's how they get and stay wealthy. And that's the truth, because it's on so many levels. So that also goes when it comes into assets that are appreciating. So like me, I bought my house at the end of 2019. Had I tried to buy the same house in 2020, it would have costed more. Not only that, the amount of equity that I would have would be less as well, because interest rates went up, the house value went up. So even though it's still worth more now than what it was in the middle of 2020, when I bought it in 2019, choosing to spend those dollars at that point during like the peak of, you don't want to buy a house now, the housing market's going to crash, because that's what they told us in 2019. It's all over, COVID, everybody's going to be stuck at home. Like, this is just going to be the worst thing that happened to the economy. So nobody was buying houses. I went and bought a house. Fast forward, those dollars that I spent then were worth way more than what they are now because of the inflation, the rise in interest rates. Like, those dollars went way further. I got more of a place. Like, if I was trying to buy a place for $100,000 now, I don't know that I could make that work. I'd be like a maybe a studio apartment somewhere that I didn't want to live. Maybe. So when people look at that and their time horizon for their dollars, it's like are askew when you're broke, or when you're working your way up, or when you're middle class, because we normally live hand to mouth. The money comes in, you go buy some stuff to pacify you, put a little bit in your 401k, and then you'll worry about it later, and you're just working until 65 or 70 or whenever they let you retire, and call it a day. The issue is, it's like those dollars that you're spending to pacify yourself, when it's excessive, you're cutting into the opportunity for tomorrow's opportunity. Like, you're paying for that. Like, you pay for it one way. Like, the more you pacify yourself, the more you pay in the future, because you're using very expensive dollars to do that, because you're doing them right now. So a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, every dollar that you're putting a place now that still exists in that place later, if you buy, so say you buy a new TV, you got a TV, your TV's fine, but you buy a new one, you want a new one. So you go spend a couple of $1,000s on a TV versus investing it. 5 years from now, not only did you not invest that and get the potential gains that you could have got on investing it, that TV is not worth what you paid for anymore. To replace that TV with the current model of that TV is probably more expensive than what you paid for that TV as well. So those really expensive dollars are spent on something that went down in value that you really aren't going to get anything out of, because most people at this point, they either give away or throw their TVs away, basically, like maybe $100. And had you invested it, it could have been in something that went up in value. And then moving forward, it's like, okay, so like you look at that and it just diverges. It's like, this is worth way less than what you spent on it, and the price went down, versus something that goes up. Now, that was an arbitrary example, but like those decisions multiplied are the reason that you have people that can go from middle class lifestyle and they can get rich, or they can go from poor and destitute and they can get into the upper middle class, or even rich, depending on how they work the income side of that. But it's those decisions projected forward have a way greater effect than people give them credit for, because when you're broke, you don't understand how that works. Like when you're middle class, they don't teach us how that works. That's not something that's taught in school. It's normally something that's either taught within a household, or you bump into somebody who's like, hey, let me put you on game. Like, you're doing this wrong. And the way that you're doing things, you're going to be poor. Like, I can see what you're doing. That's that leads to being poor in the fashion that you're doing it. So it's a very novel concept, and most people will shake their head off and be like, oh yeah, I understand that. But they really don't. And you can tell by their actions. Like you can go, okay, you understand that. Like what's your savings percentage? How much of your money that you bring in, income that comes into your household, are you saving? And then it's like, oh, well, like I'm saving like 10%. And you're like, okay, so you don't understand the concept. like you could have just said that. Like you're not living it. Like, do you just know it and you want to be poor then? Like what is, right. Right. Or it's like, let me see your brokerage account. What brokerage account? Like you don't understand. Like you just said that. Like the decisions aren't stacking up. Like you don't have any of the things. Like you have no things. Like you just go to work and come home. Like, okay. Like
absolutely. And isn't that a quote from a movie, if I'm not mistaken, that yesterday's price is not today's price?
Yes, it is.
I've never seen that. Heard that.
God, I forgot the comedian that said it, but yes, it's the funniest. That's so funny. Yes, very much so.
And so, yes, friends, life imitates art, and or vice versa. And so, it's a fact of the matter. We can see, everybody nowadays can see that, yesterday's money does not buy you as much as it will today. Or maybe I said that backwards. Yesterday's money, won't buy you as much as it will today.
Yeah.
And so how are you going to rectify that? How are you going to get around that? Or are you just going to make TikToks all day and complain about how your money doesn't go as far? Right. Everyone has their own decisions to make. The next one we have here is that if the government can print money out of thin air and you need it to live, you are a slave. Okay.
Very much so.
Definitely need you to break it down and park it on this one.
So if you think about it, the society that we live in right now, as comfortable as we are, is an open air prison. And I say that because the government has been and literally always does. They print money to pay their debts. They print money to send to other countries so that we can aid them. They print money to build things. The government doesn't they literally make money. They don't make money. But we have to go to work in order to exist, in order to have a house. So you get to pick your jail cell. You can make it as nice as you want. Indefinite commissary. But as long as you're within this system and you have to go put in physical labor to exist, you are a slave. If all you do is go to work, you are a slave in this system, because the person that you get the money from, when they need money, they just make up more money, which actually makes your money worth less, which is why we have inflation. That's how inflation works. If they stopped printing dollars today and we only had the dollars that existed and we were forced to work within those confines, we wouldn't have inflation.
No.
It would stop immediately. They're the ones who are making the inflation. So what I tell people all the time is you got to figure out how to print money. You have to figure out how to harness the energy of other people for yourselves, because our government, the reason the matrix model is so valid is because the way that this system works, in the matrix, they were in the tube and they use their bodies for energy. Here, they use us to do things. They're still using our body for energy. We're just not in pods with goop. Like we get to free roam, but we have to do something with our energy to get those dollars, and they don't. So they're utilizing us. Like we're what makes this run. And figuring out how to print money, it's like you got to get to the other side of that chessboard. You got to get to the other side of the game. It's like, okay, like you can go to work, and I'm not saying that like nobody should go to work. Like we're not built to not do stuff, but the insidious nature of the system that we're in is that we are purposefully released into the wild, into this game that we don't know that we're a part of, in a state where like we're not taught the rules, we're not taught how anything works, and they're just like, figure it out. And also, for those of you who do go through the path of which we were told, and you go to college, get the grades, rack up that debt, you also start off with an additional heavy burden. Like I was like, most of the people that I talk to about this, when we have the net worth conversation, I'm like, there's a high probability I'm worth more than you. Oh, no, it's not. I'm like, okay, do you know what your net worth is? Like, let's tally it up. And then, like, as soon as that student loan comes out, I'm like, and you own a house? Done. Like, it's over. Like, there ain't no way. Like, unless you were realistically, like, saving all of your money and you did something smart, like went back home so you could build out a brokerage account, there ain't no way. Like, it's not possible. Because you started off negative $100,000.
Yeah. At
zero. So now you minus 100,000. You working your way out of that hole, and then you bought a house. Now the hole's deep. Like you was in a deep hole. It's deeper now. And so, but that's the design, because then you have to go to work. Like a lot of these companies, for those of you who work at a company, start talking to your manager about, like, tell them you just as a joke, tell them you bought a house. They're going to love it. They're going to be like, oh, that's great. They're saying it's great because now they have leverage on you. They're like, I can ask you to work Saturday. You'll lose your house. You don't have this job.
Oh my goodness.
That's the way they look at stuff. Like I remember my business partner now, he came from a corporation that functioned like that. He worked at Sprint, and he used to love it. He'd just be like, oh, you need to get a house. You need to get a house. You need to do this, da, 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 da. And as soon as I bought my house, he was like, oh, that's great. Da, da, da. I was like, just so you know, I don't pay that note. And he was like, what? I was like, I don't pay that note. I got roommates. I don't pay it. And he was just like, oh. Like, I took his leverage away. I was like, and I let him know, like, because that's what they look for. They're going, because the perfect employee is somebody who has a family and owns a house or has high rent. You have the most leverage over that person. And that's the way that they're looking at you. And that's the reason I'm saying, like, there's levels to this game, and there's different players in the game. Like, they're going, hey, I need to extract a resource out of you. So I need to be able to tell you, like, yo, you working Saturday, and, like, don't ask me, like, no, we couldn't give you time off. Like, deal with it. You want to lose your house? What about your family? And they'll pull you into an office, and, like, that's the conversation that they will have with you to, like, bully you into doing some stuff that you don't want to do.
It's cold-blooded.
It is. And the thing is, the thing that's really messed up is, like, they are also a slave in this game too. And it's just like, well, I can at least get over and manipulate this person that's under me. And, like, that's what we're relegated to, because people don't take the time to figure out what the actual game is. And it's like, if you figure out how to print money, there's a few different ways, then now you can step over into that other side, and then you can go, oh, I can go do what I want. How many people are doing jobs right now because that's what pays well, because you got a family and you got to pay a mortgage.
Right.
You hate your job. Go in there every day. You hate your job. You hate the people you look at. You hate your manager that you got to make a nice face at every day. You hate all of it. What you want to do, don't pay enough for you and your family.
Right.
Slavery. They're just slowly chipping away at your mind and your will to exist. So yeah, like, you got to figure out how to get on the other side of that board, because, like, if you're not actively doing that, then you just get to do that till you're 65 or 70. And I mean, I honestly, when you look at these people that live in Hollywood that do all the weird stuff that live forever, they're at least doing what they want to do. And I'm assuming that that's why they never die. You gonna retire at 65 and get 5 good years and just drop because, like, they have sapped your existence out of you because you hated everything, every day of what you did for 65 years. They're going to give you a watch, pat you on the back, and then send you out to pasture, and you're going to drop dead because you have no will to live.
Not out to pasture.
Out to pasture. You're going to go into that field and fall over. Like, because they take your will away. You become an automaton. And then the next thing you know, you're the manager, and now you're doing it to your underling because that's the only thing that makes you feel good. Or you start your own business and set up the hell that you had, but now you're the warden of it. So now you get to lord over people and be that guy. Like, I'm the bully now. Like, I feel better doing this. Like, what type of existence is that? And
Yeah.
so and that's the thing that they take away from us. And that's the reason I say it's an open air prison for most people. All of us are slaves as long as we have to go to work. Until you cross over to the work optional side of things, like you have to go to work. Like you aren't doing anything. None of us are doing anything that we want to do until we don't have to anymore. That's the metric. It's like, if your bills were paid, would you show up and deal with what you're dealing with? If the answer is no, you're in bondage.
Yeah. It's just that simple.
I mean, even if you like it, if you have to be there, you in bondage. like it's just what it is. Like, you can love your job, but if you have to go to it, you still a slave. You just a slave that likes what you got assigned to do. Like, it's one of those things that like people really don't think about, because it doesn't feel good, but like honestly, discomfort's what stimulates change. So I think more people should realize it.
Yes. And that reminds me of another verse that I'm trying to find that I can't think of right now. Okay, let me see here. Okay, here we go. And this is, let me make it bigger. Wrong one. This is Proverbs 22:7. Proverbs 23:5, excuse me. It says, oh wait, no, that's the wrong one. Sorry. It's this one. Yeah, Proverbs 22:7, which is that the rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. So exactly what you were talking about is that, when people buy a house, they're not buying the house. They're
Right.
getting payment on their house.
Right.
And you are a borrower, and your employer knows that, and so they're going to take advantage of you, because then they know that now you are a servant to your lender. And so, yeah, how about you come in a half an hour early tomorrow, John? Do me that favor. And it's bondage, and the Bible talks about it pretty frequently, that we should try to avoid that as much as possible, because God is the God of freedom, and He doesn't want us to be in bondage. And it's completely unnecessary. If you can set yourself up, to avoid it as early as possible.
Right. Right.
And so the next tip is, well, okay, let's do a brief review, because we're more than halfway done. So I want to just touch on the review for a second. So number 1 was pay yourself first. And have a financial standard. 3 is maximize what you have before chasing the bag. 4 is ignore the Joneses. 5 is money is a tool / energy / opportunity. 6 is $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. 7 is if the government can print money out of thin air and you need it to live, you are a slave. And wait, am I off? That was number 6. Okay, I was off. Number 7 is money is a game. Your net worth is your score.
No, that's 8.
Oh, that's 8?
Yeah. 7 was the government one.
Oh, okay. There we go.
But yeah. So I mean, that's what wealthy people. I mean, I guess if you're in conversations, because like I've never heard this come up in a conversation, like ever, at all, with any person who had a net worth that was like something you would oogle at. But in these YouTube streets, like it's a qualifier, like it's one of those things like the Forbes list, like making it to Forbes list is a big deal. Everybody looks at it and they go, oh, this person's worth X amount of billions of dollars. There's like a ranking system on it. And within everything, there's hierarchies. And within the world of finance, your net worth is your score for that game, like the game of money. It's like, how much have you accumulated in assets? How many assets do you have? Like, what have you built your empire on? And it's being able to track your net worth. Like if that's moving in a positive direction, then I'd say generally speaking, in most cases, your life's getting better.
Okay.
So the higher it is, better off you are, the more opportunities you have, unless your net worth is your house. That's the one caveat. If like your whole net worth is your house, then you're still poor, basically, because you got to eat your house to get any of those assets. Like and then you don't have your house, so now you got to find a place to live. Like it's just generally that's not a good game to play unless you're a surgeon. Then you want to have all your net worth in your house and live in a state that you can't sue yourself out of your house. Because then if you do get a malpractice lawsuit, you can sell your house and start over. I live in a state where you can't get sued out of your house. So we got a lot of surgeons and doctors that live in this state, and like that's what they do. They just hide as much as they can in the house.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I mean, people sue for anything anymore, so it's a cautionary practice for surgeons. They'll normally gravitate towards those types of jurisdictions because worst case scenario, you sell that excessively big house that you bought that you didn't need, and you just downsize your house.
Okay, well, I guess this is kind of a tangent, but I thought it was like really hard to sue for like medical malpractice because you're kind of like you already like kind of sign a waiver that says like
if you mess somebody up or they die, man, like, they still catching them. I mean, they have to have insurance for a reason. Like if the waiver covered it, they wouldn't have malpractice insurance.
Okay.
Because like accidents do happen. It's like you're messing with somebody's spine and you turn their feet off on accident. You can't turn them back on. Like you get sued, bro. Homie can't walk now.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. The fact that I guess I never thought about malpractice insurance. So
yeah.
Okay, so yeah, if you're a surgeon, I don't know how many surgeons I have watching, but very interesting. I was gonna say something else. Man, I forget it now. Maybe it'll come back to me later. But number 9 is assets are better than income. And I think this is probably my husband's favorite tip on the list. But we've been touching on this, about the stocks and the Bitcoin or the gold or what have you. And so I guess just, so I guess you already said that Bitcoin is your favorite asset, but I guess what are some of your favorite assets that you think people should be looking more into?
In regards to this, I would say there's a caveat here, and it's income generating or rapidly appreciating. So Bitcoin would fall under this heading because it rapidly appreciates, Okay. So income generating, though, is what I was getting at. It's one of the means. The initial one for me, it's like the one that I'm really dialed in on right now, is income generating assets, because that is the way that we as normal people can print money. And they tell us that we shouldn't do that. They're like that. Oh, you don't want to do that. Like you got to pay taxes. And it's like my income that's generated out of my brokerage account is taxed at a lower rate than my income that I go to work for. It's preferentially treated. So me moving into a space where most of my income comes out of my portfolio and I just get a paychecks every month is actually less taxes than me going to work. And if you're a W-2 employee, you are the heaviest taxed person in this game. That's the hardest way to get rich. That's the reason when you hear on these YouTube streets, you hear these people that know nothing about money, and the first thing they want to throw out as a pejorative to anyone that they're talking to is, I make 6 figures. It's like, okay, you pay more in taxes than I do. Like, that's fine. Like, you don't make 6 figures. You don't take home 6 figures. That's for damn sure.
Right.
Like, and I mean, the higher up you go, the worse it is. It gets up to like 50%. They'll take half your check.
Yeah.
So that's literally the worst place to be on the board. Talking about salary, like what you go to work to make, is akin to having a competition for who's the best slave, in my opinion. You're just going, I'm a really good slave. Like, I'm real good at it. Like, you're just, okay. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want the majority of my income coming from that. So for me, like, I do high income dividend investing, which is, it's not as risky as crypto, but there's a little bit of management that goes into it, but it's an order of magnitude less work than like what I do every day for work. And the income that's generated from it, as I'm scaling it out, will eventually get to the point to where like it covers everything that I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the other perk of that is that gives me the freedom to exist anywhere that I want on the chessboard known as the world. Like I don't have to physically be in the States all the time. I can be anywhere and manage this account because the internet, like I can just log in when the market's open, do the things that I got to do, or make a phone call and have the brokerage do it for me. And I can keep moving that way. But again, it allows me to print money. And once you print money, you don't have to go to work. You can choose to go to work, but you don't have to go to work. So those are my two favorites right now. Like real estate would be one, but it's just like in the climate that we're in this country, like I don't even want my second property here, to be honest, right now. Like I'm fine with the one that I have, and like I have a spot here, so whenever I come home, I have a place to visit. I can keep a room, but I don't, because it's being in the United States full time. I'm realizing like the closer I get to not being able to be here is like the game that they have us set on, with the way that we believe that things have to exist here. Because the United States is like one game. You could look at every other country's economic system, a different game. Our game is based on stressing us the F out to the brink constantly. There's constantly a threat. There's constantly something wrong. People aren't happy. People aren't joyful.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and we have to go to work. Like, it's terrible. And so I'm like, I don't know that I want the ability, the opportunity, if you would, to not have to be here all year.
Mm-hmm.
like honestly, like I want to be able to go somewhere that has non-poisoned food, because like that's the other thing, and we're poisoned.
Yeah.
like our food's not good for us, like almost none of it. Like what are we, like you can't even not eat here. Like it's crazy to me.
Yeah.
And I don't like the system that we've set up. And it's not that we've set up, it's what we're evolving into. It's just like a bunch of miserable people arguing constantly. There's no joys, no smiles. And like, that's not to say that there aren't, but it's just like we're constantly bombarded with stress.
Yeah.
And I would like to be in a position where I can go take a breather and just like go eat some clean food, sit by some water, be in a society where people are happy, like please for a little bit, and then come back and be like, okay, I've got my bearings, and like I'll just like sling drinks or something while I'm here and listen to people complain. Like I don't know, but that's the way that I want my life. Like I honestly also would not, like, while I would want my child born in America to get that passport, I don't want their formative years. I don't want their formative years here at all.
Interesting.
Like period. Because unless I'm in a situation, even if I can homeschool them, like I don't want them around people here. Like not during the formative years. Like I want them to have some sort of solid footing, and then bring them here and be like, cool, like, you know, these people are crazy, but like, like we gonna rock out. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to be able to go somewhere and be like, yo, like, I want you to exist here and like learn some standards, and then we'll go back into Sodom and Gomorrahville, because you can't shelter here. Like you can't, like it's to the tune now to where like they'll come at you and try to take your kids.
Yeah.
Or put them in that system so that they can indoctrinate them. I'm like, I want my kid to have the ability to think critically and think on his own before I release him to those wolves, so that we can have a conversation about it. Because like at this point, they're indoctrinating kids that are smart because they're not teaching them to think critically. And like, they're just recruiting them. And I'm like, I'm not built for that. Like I'll be on the news. So I want the opportunity to be able to go, hey, I can have them somewhere else or adjacent to this, and very not here for that. So that's the reason I'm like very much focused on the income piece of it, because I also don't want to have to relinquish my cryptocurrency, because the way that I look at that, that's kind of the nugget. Like I'm hoping I never have to touch it. Like I want to be successful enough to where I just got that growing in the background to put numbers on the board for me, so I don't got to do nothing. But like everything up front's taken care of, and I just don't touch that, and I get to give it to my kids or my family.
Right. Right. Going back to your standard.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's very good. Um, and so, so with this point, I have another thing that I thought of, which is I saw on Instagram, like how you were saying that, this arbitrary pissing match that people will have between, well, I make six figures and you're broke. And it's like, well, you just pay more in taxes. And I saw some NFL player, I think he was for the Kansas City Chiefs. He posted, I guess, a pay stub, and he literally paid 49% in taxes.
Yeah.
I was like, how is that legal? I mean, this is theft.
Well, it's because the way that this society works, you want to disincentivize people from just working. That's what it is. It's so that you can't get to the upper echelons just working.
Yeah.
That's why they do that. And the reason is because workers don't innovate. Like if you show up to somebody's job, you're showing up with your hand out to something that somebody else built to get money. If we all did that, we would have nothing. There would be like one business, people would complain about it, and like it doesn't work well that way. So you've got to put your caps in place for the people, because your workers are, even though they're the backbone of the society, they're the backbone because of the amount of them. They're not necessarily the best contributors. They're not the innovators. You don't get workers and then also get to have air conditioning. You know where everybody works? Africa. No innovation. No big buildings. Barely electricity. Not a place that you would want to work. That's what happens when no one innovates.
Right.
I mean, and so what you do is, if you're going to set up like the best society possible, it would be exactly what we have, but it would be tweaked. Because like you would have it so that there's a way to reacclimate people into society to keep them useful and beneficial that are workers. Because like you don't just want to, you can't piss off all the peasants. Like that just doesn't work well historically. But the reality of the situation is you are going to have more workers than people who are innovators or people who are entrepreneurs. My angle and my attack at that issue is teaching those people who are workers, because I am a worker as well, how to put themselves in positions to navigate their way into getting actual equity, not diversity, equity, inclusion equity, but like actual equity in a company where you own something.
Yeah.
Not just the ability to be there, but putting people in a position to where even as a worker, there are side games that you can play that can help you get ahead and get you to a point to where like you're not grinding your soul to dust and you can enjoy your life as well. Because the reality of it is we've always had workers. The original plan was you were supposed to be able to put in 40 years of work, or 30, 40 years of work. And then you were supposed to be able to go off into the sunset and the rest of your life is a vacation because you did your part. The problem is this specific board that we're on, which is America, because again, these are just different financial games. America's a financial game. This game was never set up with the intent of making it amicable for the people at the bottom, because we were not a homogenous country. Every other country that has better standards than us, that we always compare ourselves to, well, like they have better medical health care. These people are this, these people are that. Like, you know what else they're not doing? Their government's also not poisoning them, so they have to be sick.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you don't want to live there if you don't have surgery. Be like, look at the cancer rates on those countries. They don't have a bunch of people that are just morbidly obese, dysgenic, and having cancer because they're not poisoning them. Yeah. The intent is everyone's healthy and okay, not we just need to just be hacking people up all the time. Mm-hmm. That's not normal. So the system that we're in, the game that we're playing, was never meant from the inception for everyone to win. These other countries that have better healthcare, they have safer communities. They have nuclear families. They have rules that they enforce. They enforce their border laws. They don't want a bunch of people from outside coming there. And when they do, the people that live there get pissed. They're homogenous groups of people. So there was never a malicious intent towards anyone at the bottom, because the people at the bottom and the people at the top are the same people.
Yeah.
And you would be maniacal and insane to go, we're all the same people, but those of you who are doing bad, we want you to just suffer indefinitely and die. That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense here. Makes sense in Australia. Makes sense in Britain. It makes sense in South Africa. Makes sense everywhere that there are barriers that were put in place to where you have clearly defined different classes of people. And like people could be like, oh, well, like the poor people in other homogenous countries are down bad too. And it's like, well, they have less people in prison and they have less people that are in that situation. And generally, if you get into that situation, there is a ramp out of it to where they go, we'll find a way for you to be useful.
Mm-hmm.
So this system, like, we have a lot of soul searching and a lot of work to do collectively to fix it. And in doing so, there's going to be a lot of heartache, there's going to be a lot of carnage, and there's going to be a lot of just not good scenarios. And like the only way to win in this is to figure out a way to circumvent it or put it to where it's within your control. But like, I think everyone should opt for an opportunity to get a breather from it. I do. Like, life is different when you leave this place and actually get to go somewhere where there's calm, where there's peace, where there's silence. And we're so used to being here that this feels normal. And you don't know that it's not normal until you go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Because everywhere in the United States is here. Like in some, like you can go look at different buildings and there's different people, and obviously the cultures are different in different spaces, but like you're still here. We're still arguing about the same stuff. We're still having that stuff pumped in our face on the news. Go somewhere where they're not talking about the United States as much, where it's just a blurb. Take a breath and just breathe, because you can. It's like that's a major goal for me, is to be able to control that, because I'm a thinker, and like this is like, it's not good for people who aren't thinking, because I see them online. I see the stuff people are posting all the time. Like I get on YouTube and I see those people and I'm like, oh Lord, like I'm just like, I don't want my mind degraded from, I'm like, I have to be able to have a breather. Cause like it feels now more than ever, and it's gotten worse every 4 years. Mm-hmm. Almost every 4 years. I mean, we had one reprieve, but like after that and before that, every 4 years, it feels like you're sinking further underwater, and like you're just flailing your arms and you can't get to the top. And I'm just like I want, and like when I travel outside the country, I get that breath of fresh air. And I'm like, but it's only for like a week. And I'm like, I want to be able to be out here for like a month or two, like 3 months, 4 months, and just like completely be able to just detox, like just have enough time to get enough food in your system that your system starts changing. Like you drink some clean water.
Right.
like that. And I think that we don't have enough of a context. And like, it's not to say that this is terrible, but like that is a tactic that they use to keep slaves distracted, is to constantly keep you in a state of stress, to constantly keep you in a state of worry, to constantly keep you concerned, fighting with your neighbor, fighting with your fellow citizens over arbitrary stuff that actually doesn't matter because we're all Americans, putting you on teams. Mm-hmm. Those are all things that they use to keep you in your open air prison that they have you in.
Right.
All distraction. And it's actually bad for your health. That as well. Both mental and physical, just so you know, scientifically. Makes you die faster.
Absolutely. Humans were only meant to withstand so much all this outside influence. And it's like, because you in your own personal life, you only have so much stress, and you can control this you have, because you can control who you hang around, where you go, what things you entertain. But when you're always intaking all the world's problems and what's
Yep.
going on in all these different places, you can't handle that. You're not meant to.
Like, people are literally out here protesting about places that they can't find on a globe. That is insane. You mad all day about a place that you can't point at.
Yeah.
For some people that you ain't never met, that you ain't never gonna meet one of. It's crazy. Like, it's that. And then, like, logical thinking people have to be existing in the same place with those people. I'm like, you're inconveniencing me, and this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, or clogging up the streets to go protest.
Yeah.
They never
Like,
even met.
no, it's wild. And like, I don't want to raise a child exposed to that. So like, I have to have my stuff in order before I can have a kid. Cause I'm like, bro, like, I gotta be like, yo, we dipping for a few years. Like, we gotta figure this out. So I mean, because I would want them to have some sort of firm foundation before they come here and get wondering why grandpa's got a dress on trying to read to him at school. Like, I can't deal with it. Like, I can't. I'm like, especially not to have him come home and be like, well, I want to wear a dress now. I'll be like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
No, you don't. Matter of fact, where was you at? Because now we got to have a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be vigilant. I mean, you can't just trust your village that they're going to have your kids' best interest at heart, and you can just trust people and let your kids be people. It's like, no, it's a completely different jungle that we're in now. So I don't blame you in that aspect.
Yeah, like, it's just too hard to defend any type of values. And like, if you're in a space that has no set standard, again, back to standards, then it's like, you can have a standard within your house, but like, at a certain point, like, my entire time growing up, there was a standard for this country. Like, there was a bare minimum, a standard. You go to school, you say the Pledge of Allegiance. When I was in Catholic school, we did the Pledge of Allegiance and the Hail Mary. Like, there were standards. There was always, like, we never hated the country that we lived in. Like, these people act like they can just go somewhere else and American guilt their way into being one of the good ones. And I'm like, they don't like you either. Like, you're on the team, bro. Like, is there room for improvement? Absolutely. But being like, this place, like, you hate this place? You hate here where the only place you've existed. You hate it. Like, I can't rationalize that. I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, you do realize that, like, no matter where you go, like, you're on this team. Like, you can be like, I hate them too. And you know what? Like, them dudes gonna, like, lop your head off still to prove a point. Like, you can't be on their team. Like, you're here. You are, like, you an American. Like, that's the only team you got. Nowhere else wants you on their team, especially if they're running out of food. It's over.
Yeah, and you all you have to do is just take all that with a grain of salt, because it's just successfully brainwashed NPC babble, and so it means nothing. These people, it's just empty.
They're so no, we can't say that anymore. You can't believe that. They try to blow Trump's head off. I mean, honestly, like, think about that. The team that's talking about we should take everyone's guns away and we're holier than thou and we have moral high ground is now shooting at ideas they don't like. And then telling them the idea that they don't like, that they're the fascists while they're trying to actively end their existence.
Yeah.
So when you get to that stage in, like, a breakdown in conversation, like, that's problematic, because the reality of the situation is you can't just have one or the other. You can't have a conservative run country because it ends in cannibalism. And you can't have a liberal run country because it ends in cannibalism. Every historical point where it was either right or left, and only right or left, starvation and cannibalism has resulted. Period. So you got to have a discourse on both sides. The conversations that we're having as a country are supposed to be about policy, and they're supposed to benefit all of us. We are no longer having that conversation. We currently have a candidate that was put into position, not even following the democratic process.
Right.
They have broken the law to implant this candidate that has said nothing about policy. Nothing. Has done nothing policy wise, besides advocate for stuff that at least 50% of this country don't rock with in another country while leaving our border wide open. And that same team has now put out these, because you can see it in the algorithm now. When they start posting, Trump's a fascist. Trump is the new H dude from Germany.
Yeah.
And then someone tries to shoot him in the head. Like, you're piecing together a thing to make these people act, because they are blatantly non-thinking at this point. So you can't even say that they're actually liberals. This is exactly what happened in Germany that we all decided wasn't a great idea, is exactly what's happening with half of this country right now.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that there shouldn't be liberals, but I'm saying what this is turning into, with nobody speaking out, nobody going, hey, like, we've circumvented process. Like, hey, you've taken our right to vote away. Hey, we're not getting to decide who we want to be our representative.
Well, you know what's funny?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, out of all groups or all people to call somebody out, BLM called out the Democrats for just injecting Kamala Harris. They were like, this is hypocrisy. We're not being democratic, and, we didn't vote for her. And I'm like, that you are a freak when BLM is calling you out for being disingenuous and being dishonest.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's so blatant now, but the problem is, this is the equivalent of, oh, we didn't know what they were burning over there in those buildings. Now the roller coaster is going downhill, because like now you have people who are just blindly fighting to defend it.
Mm-hmm.
And like those people are going to be a problem. Like those people are the types of people who crawl up on roofs and just start shooting at ideas that they don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because they're not thinking, they've broken this down into a team. They're like, I don't care. Like, I had somebody tell me that, oh, we knew this was coming. This was the plan all along. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. She got no votes.
Yeah.
I don't even know how she became VP. Like, I mean, and the thing is, all the is come out when you start voicing these opinions. And I was like, I voted for the second woman candidate we had. Period. I voted for a woman before it was cool. I voted for Jo Jorgensen because she had policy and ideas and could formulate whole sentences. And out of the three candidates, she did have the best policies for this country. Period. Third party found out the hard way. You're not going to make it to president. Like, it's just not possible, basically. It sucks, but it's the truth. So it's not that I'm not willing to vote for a woman. I'm not willing to vote for someone who's unqualified that has no policy. That's also anti the entire industry that's the majority of my wealth, because like this administration that we currently have is very anti-crypto. I'm like, so you're making it so I can't even live in the country that I was born in, basically. Why would I vote for you? Like, you don't like me. Like,
Yeah.
like, so that's like a very key thing. And so like, I understand a lot of people are like, it's a minority of people, but like when I see people that I know exist in real life, like these are people I've shook their hands, I've had conversations face to face with them, start frothing at the mouth to defend this woman. And the fact that they illegally put her in position. Like, they're like, you shouldn't be upset about us not getting to vote. You don't vote Democrat anyway. That's the response. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, so you literally just don't think. Like, this isn't about rules then. This isn't about like, you shouldn't be able to vote. Like, that's my very next thought is I'm like, so our votes are the same. And like, I'm sitting here trying to figure out policy, asking inquisitive questions, and you just get mad and you're like, shut up. You shouldn't, like, this isn't about that. Like, this has happened before. And I'm like, when in your lifetime? like when in your lifetime have they just put somebody in here? Like, when? Let me know. Like, because it hasn't. And so those types of things are like very concerning to me when it gets, and I feel the same way about far right people. Like, I like, if you aren't talking policy, like I have I start side eyeing. But then, like, also when it's like this blind, I'm on a team, you're on a team, and I'm not going to do this and do this. And it's like, okay, so if a Democrat had the best policy ever that was perfect for everyone, you're not going to vote for them because they're a Democrat. And like, that's the only reason. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, if the policy is sound and it's good for America, then like, why wouldn't you do that? If we're pro-America, like pro-America isn't one team. And unfortunately, one of the teams has made this a thing. Like, they're doing their own thing. And like, that is also concerning because I'm like, we should have more than two choices for how many people we have, period. There should be more than two parties. We should probably have 5 or 6, to be honest, because there's a lot of people and there's no way that 2 parties are encompassing all of that. And we're seeing it happen actively. Whatever's going on in the Democratic Party right now is very concerning to me because they're breaching policy, they're breaking rules, and they've made it so that their constituency is just, for by and large, co-signing. Because you said BLM, I didn't know that they'd spoken out against it. Like, that's dope for them. That's how bad stuff's gotten, though. Bill Maher also has spoken out. That's how bad stuff's gotten. like something has happened. And it's just like the people within the party who are thinking that we're champions for it, that were like, yo, I'm trying to be on the team as best I can, are going, yo, this is not right. This is messed up. This person's not qualified.
Yeah, this is not democracy, which they want to harp on, which it's kind of a red herring because we're a democratic republic. We're a constitutional republic. We're not a democracy. But, this is what y'all say that we are. And then here y'all go and completely uproot it and just commit a coup against the sitting president. And it's like, oh, okay. Is that what we're doing now? I mean, it's just completely rewritten the rules on everything. Yeah. And they're just like, just shut up and do what we say. Yeah.
And so my deal is, I'm like, you have to be on the right side of this because this can benefit you either way if you own stuff. But you also need to be able to, in all honesty, you need to be able to leave. Because like, I hate to say it, but it's not that we're not going to be able to win, but it's like, somebody's got to live to carry the American legacy just in case. Because it's not good. I'm like, when you see stuff like that, like open a history book and read about Stalin's Russia, read about Germany. That seed is how that started, with people that were just no longer about policy. It's about rhetoric and emotion. And we're going to activate you to start doing stuff. Mm-hmm. And we have seen something like, as much as people want to talk about conservatives and crazy and guns and we ain't seen a conservative shoot at a Democratic presidential candidate or ex-president's head.
Right.
Ever. Publicly and get away and like get multiple shots off. Like, yeah. Like, what? Happen. Right. I mean, when they got Kennedy, that was one shot. He didn't shoot him he wasn't shooting a bunch of times. Like, that was one shot. Like, this is one of those slippery slopes that like we don't want to go down. Like, you don't want to go down this as a nation. Like, there's people talking about national divorce, like where we're going to just split this stuff up. Like, that's going to suck because it's going to have to result in civil war because all them goofy people and the dudes wearing dresses aren't going to be able to sustain themselves in a state if it's just them.
Yeah.
They will get nothing built. The state will go to crap, and then they're going to need resources. And as soon as you need resources, you got to go take them. And they're not necessarily going to be able to, but they're going to try because they're going to be hungry. Like, yeah, 100%. But I'm saying, like, that's still a bad outcome because, like, now you got to have Texas go take over California to get the roads fixed because, like, everything's broken. And then it's like, do we even want this state? Like, we should clear these people out so they stop coming trying to take our food. Like, it's not a good, like, a good out. Like, I mean, best case scenario, we national divorce, just give up California and build a wall around it and just let them live there. Then you can rock out however you want, turn into whatever the heck you want. Like, you're your own thing. But like, those are serious conversations that are happening. And like, that's the reason I'm like, bro, like I need to be able to just hit a plane and I'll watch it from the beach. I'll be like, oh, so I'm staying here a minute. I'm a refugee now. Like, holler if you hear me. Like, it'll be like, what happened? Be like, I escaped from America. Like,
terrible shame.
But yeah, no, it's something that we have to think about, and it's conversations that we have to have. But it's like, we can't go around saying that if they're not on your team, they're racist, or if you're not agreeing implicitly, like, we can't talk. Like, this is a nation that's built on conversations, and we're supposed to have two sides. One of the sides is currently broken. I am going to say that straight up. What's going on right now within the Democratic Party, that team, side, party, whatever you want to call it, has broken. And whatever that cancerous piece that's in it is, like, maybe we just leave that and make another party, and we don't rock with it. Because, like, it's not per the values of this country, and it's not going to make it better for the citizens.
Right. Like,
it's not. Like, I already know where that ends. If you want the spoilers, I already gave you a couple of areas of history where you can go look up exactly what happened, because, like, kind of starting doing that. and it doesn't end well. Like, it's not going to be beneficial for us as a country to start trying to replace what made this country what it is. And you don't have to believe it's great, but I always ask people, and I never get an answer. If this isn't the greatest place that you've ever been, where would you like to have been born during the time that you've been alive right now, that you feel you would have had better opportunity than here? Right. Period. As bad as it is, still better than everywhere else, especially for those of you who weren't born rich already, which is most of us.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry for the tangent. We can go over number 10 now.
No, it makes me laugh because this is a pre-record, and so by the time that this comes out, because I'm doing December, that the election will have already happened. So it'll be fun for the viewers to hear us talking, because right now it's July, and so they'll be like, "Oh man, they were talking about all this stuff," and who knows what's going to happen between now and December. And so it's like a fun little time capsule.
Yeah.
If you're talk about it right now. So.
Oh yeah.
Oh man. But, so if you're seeing this, then you already know what's happening. But we're just like, we're on a wild ride.
Right.
And so yes, number 10 is debt is a wealth creation tool. Now I have to admit, this is the one that I was like giving you the side eye a little bit, but I'm gonna hear you out.
Okay. So I can break this down. This is a good one because it's counterintuitive, and it's the reason it's counterintuitive is because, again, it's one of the things that keeps you in your open air prison. All wealthy people use debt. Like, I understand that we got some of our gurus out here that talk about how they do their development deals in cash and whatever and what have you. I know one of the biggest land developers in this region personally, and he sat me down and told me straight up, he was like, oh yeah, he was like, I leverage all my developments to the hilt. I take as much money as the bank can give me, because if things go bad, and I'm going to give you a spoiler, and then I'll give you a perfect example. If things go bad on your development and you are in a partnership with the bank, which means that they have loaned you most of the money for it, when they come to talk to you about what you're going to do about it, it's a meeting, and it's what are we going to do about it? If you are in a development deal by yourself and it goes south, you just lost all your money. And that's the end of the conversation. Another example that I give, over COVID, a lot of people lost their houses because they had to stay at home.
Right.
The people that lost their houses first were the ones that were actively trying to pay off the house. Once you get past a certain threshold where you've paid off most of the house, but like you owe maybe 30%, you've been working real hard. Now your job's gone and you can't pay nothing. The bank won't work with you. They just take your house, because they can take that house and sell it at a profit, because they're not into the house anymore. You are.
Oh.
If you owe a bunch on your house and the bank is more into the house than you are, they're going to work with you. They're like, hey, we can furlough you a few months. We can do this. We got this program. We got this government program. Those government program funds, they didn't go to help people who had paid off most of their mortgages. Those people still lost their houses. because the bank made money off of them. And they used all those funds to keep the people that the bank would have lost money on in their homes. Because they were like, we need you here to pay for this because like you still owe us a lot of money. And we'll lose money on this deal if we got to liquidate or short sell this house.
Interesting.
Again, partnership. So debt used to acquire assets is a wealth creation tool. It supercharges your finances. I do it all the time. I do credit card conversions. I do that not for the maximum amount. Like I know that there's some gurus out there. They're like, yeah, you get a credit card with $20,000 and take out a $19,000 loan and just go buy yourself some rims and a Hellcat. I don't do that. Like I do it, and I'm not joking. Like it's a thing, but it's just you. But the thing that you have to look at is if you're using the tool wrong, that's not on the tool. That's on you. Like if you have a hammer and you just keep smashing your hand, or you trying to hammer screws into stuff, the hammer's not at fault here. Like that's you. You are the problem. Like the tool is the tool. So when you're using debt to actually purchase assets, it allows you to purchase at a faster clip. That doesn't mean you leverage to the hilt, but it allows you to, take 5-10 grand at a time. And now your portfolio is growing 5-10 grand at a time, and you budget that money in the payback, and you can pay it back during the 0% interest. It's free money for me. Because if I'm like, hey, I'm going to pay this back within 12 months, then I got the money. I paid it'd be like 4%. So it's like a couple $100. I put it into an income producing asset, and I use that to pay the loan back with a little bit of money out of my check, pay it back within 10 months. That's within the 0% period. And now I get to keep the income producing asset, and the debt's gone. You have to be smart. That's how you use the tool. And then as you scale it out, it's like, okay, so I'm doing this every year. And I mean, I've done a video on this. Like I'm pretty much in a spot right now. Like once my debt's cleared from like the surgeries and my car, once I'm in the cycle that I'm on, I'm able to give myself a $10,000 boost every year, which allows me to produce an additional $10,000 in income every year. With what I'm making now, if I never get another raise, like the way that my budget works, I'm like, cool, I can pull this. It's going to get paid back in 10 months or less because I have an income flow now that I've built doing exactly that. And so if you take me versus a person who doesn't do that, and they're going, well, we're saving the same amount of money, we make the same amount of money, their income isn't building as fast as mine. Now, the risk of it is you take the loan and you hurt yourself and you can't go to work for a month. In which case, you still have the underlying asset. Like there's never a way that I couldn't pay back the debt. There's stuff that I could liquidate. Like if all my assets go to zero and like I can't get to my Bitcoin, everything's worth $0, and we have a different set of problems. I don't got to worry about paying it back anyway. Like we've gone back to caveman times. Like I'm good. I'm still up. Like I'm exactly where I'm at now.
Okay, yeah.
So when people, because like I understand like a lot of people have the stigma of debt, and that's because most people would do use those tools, and they go, I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna take out $10,000 in debt, and we're taking the family on vacation.
Right.
And it's gone. And then you come back and you still got to pay this back. Yeah. There's no underlying support. There's nothing you can liquidate to pay this back that you used to make it. I mean, as crazy as this sounds, when I hurt myself and I knew I was going to be down I didn't know how long I was going to be down for, but I knew I was going to be on that couch for at least a month. The first thing that I did was pull $8,000 out and put it into my brokerage account to produce some more income. The first thing I did, because I was like, well, I'll be able to manage this. And if this is producing income and I have a couple of other things that I can liquidate, then like all I have to really worry about is making sure I can feed myself and pay my phone bill. Because like basically everything else is covered. So I was like, well, this will give me enough income to feed myself and manage what little debt I have until I can get back to work. Like I'll be able to, with this amount of money, I'll be able to float myself if I needed to.
Okay.
And like
So,
that. Oh, go ahead.
so I'm just asking, would a caveat to this be that debt is a wealth creation tool if you already have assets, or does it even if you don't have assets right
No,
now?
if I was starting off today and I had my credit the way that it is, because I made it a point to get good credit. I never used it. I was like the person who was like, my credit's over 800, and there's like it just sits there all the time until I started using it. But like if I was to start over again, like when I first started investing in crypto, I've been getting these. Like my credit was good then. And so I've been getting these offers where it's like, hey, convert your debt, and they send you those checks where it's like
Okay.
you get 0%. You can write those checks to yourself and deposit them into the bank.
Hmm.
And then the terms for that check remain the terms for that check. So it's 0%. They charge you that 4% to use it, or 2%, depending on what the interest rates are at the time. And as long as you pay it back within the window, you don't pay any more interest on it. So for me, I don't have investments that don't make under 4% or produce income. Like I'm not worried about the growth if it's kicking off money, but if it's not kicking off money, like I can just go invest in Bitcoin, and like that's a no-brainer trade for me. Because if I'm getting averaging 100% a year and I can get something for 4%, that's free money as far as I'm concerned. Because I'm like, cool, I'll pay you back over 10 months. I get to keep the Bitcoin, and it's going to go up in value exponentially. And I can do that play over and over and over again. The thing that I don't do is I don't do it for my maximums on my cards. I keep it within something that I know that I can pay back with dollars, because that ties into the dollar today versus dollar tomorrow. So I'm borrowing dollars today, the expensive ones, buying an asset that goes up in value, and then paying it back over a time span with dollars that are worth less than those dollars I spent.
Right. Okay. I see now.
So like that's because like I'm like, debt is an awesome tool if you're not insane with it. Like as long as you're not gambling, it's a no-brainer thing. It's like, do you like free money? Like yes. Like it's literally another means of which you can print money. And the thing is, people are doing this anyways right now to buy stuff and keep up appearances and lifestyle. Look at the average national debt. Like there was an article that I did a video on it because there was an article that I saw that was talking about Americans are so in debt now that they're basically using their credit cards as income, as an additional income source. And I was like, and their frame of reference was they're using it as an income source to keep their lifestyles exactly where they were because they're not willing to cut back, or they're just trying to do extra stuff. And I was like, I do the exact same thing, except for I just buy assets and get wealthier. And it's if you're the people that are using it like that, once they find Dave Ramsey, they're going to hate that because they've been using it wrong. Like me and him couldn't have that conversation because I'd be like, well, it increases my net worth every year. I pay it back. I have this big pool of assets that's ever expanding. I'm like, can you tell me exactly what's wrong with it? Well, what if? And I'm like, you're going to have to give some hypothetical apocalyptic what if. I'm like, what if everything turns off and like my Bitcoin disappears and everything goes to zero and all that's left is debt? I'm like, well, Dave, you're old. I'm bludgeoning you and taking your stuff. Like, you got to worry at that point. Like, I'm good, bro.
Yeah. And so like Dave's strategy is like you were saying, it's good for if you don't know anything about finances. Yeah. And he also says that this is good for like everybody. And so he's talking to the common man. And so what you're talking about, so like how I was saying that maximize what you have before you're chasing the bag is probably my favorite off the list, because that's like the most fundamental thing that you have to understand. I would say this is a much more advanced money tip.
Yes.
Because everybody is not wise enough, responsible enough, prudent enough to manage their debt as a tool. And so I think that's why Dave Ramsey is so adamant against it, because he's like, only certain people are smart enough and able to manage their debt to leverage for them.
Right.
And, just Joe Schmo, like you were saying, who makes the $45,000 and can't buy a house in cash, yeah, some of those tips aren't going to be feasible for him, but he doesn't need to take out any credit card debt and try to start leveraging things, because he's probably just going to end up in more debt because, he just saw this new truck that he liked.
It really depends. Well, no, it's you don't want it for the truck, but I mean, this scales. So would he be able to pull out like 10 grand a year? Probably not. Like that would be too big of a chunk of his income at the onset. But could he take out like 2 to 3 grand a year and do it over 10 months? Probably, depending on how he sets his budget up, what his expenses are. And that's the thing. It's like, and it's actually more beneficial for him than it is for me at this point, because like mine is just scaled up. But like I'm in a position where I can pay that back out of my paycheck and I don't have to use the asset at all. I'm just going, hey, I want to front load this, and I want to be able to kick myself this money every year to front load an investment. It doubles my opportunity fund, because I basically save $10,000 every. It's almost at the exact 10-month mark, because generally speaking, like when I do this, I'll just allocate that money so I don't have to change anything else. And I'm like, I'll just pay this back. And then after I do it, I'm like, cool. And then if I want to do it again, I'll just reset that clock, and I kind of just pull it in that way. But outside of doing this, I save $10,000 every 10 months either way. Right? Okay. Now, as I'm building the asset base up, though, like now that I can fully just pay for this in and of itself out of the dividends, like scaling up to that, you could start off with a smaller amount. You just don't do $10,000. Like if that's something that you can't pay back, then I wouldn't do that. Even if it was to get an asset, because now that you got an asset, but like then you're going to not be able to pay this thing back. But like if you can budget it out and go, cool, I can pay $3,000 back over 10 months. Like that might be workable on a smaller budget. And then you could just keep doing that to build out that income stream. And then eventually the income stream can pay that. So now you go, well, once the income stream can cover it, if you actually utilize it that way, you can take out $6,000 because you can pay back $3,000 and you have an income stream that can pay back $3,000. Right? So like, I mean, technically speaking, if I wanted to, like, if like based on that logic and like the way that I have my budget set out, like now that my income stream can pay that amount of money, I could pull $20,000 and pay one back with the income stream, one back with my money. And then all of it goes in to boost and put additional income in that income stream. Wow. So this does, and see, that's the part of debt that people don't understand. Yeah. That's how you scale, and you don't have to do it in a risky fashion. You just have to have a system and be financially disciplined. Now, the people in Dave Ramsey's camp are extremely financially disciplined. It's hard to save up enough money to pay cash for everything. That is an insanely hard deal. For those people that can do that can literally dial in like that, something like this, if they used the tool appropriately and understood how it worked, bro, you can do so much, because I'm a terrible budgeter. I'm terrible at it, and I tell people that all the time. I don't propose to be the budget guru. The only thing that I've been able to successfully budget to this date is this system, because I understand the math on it and how it works. And everything else is subject to. I'm like, if I'm in the ballpark of my bit of X amount for groceries this week, as long as it's in the ballpark, we can figure it out. Like, but for this piece where I'm like, this is generating wealth, meticulous. I'm like, cool. This is how much it takes to make $10,000 in 10 months. If I take this loan out, I can put it here. How much income is that pulling out? Okay. How long until I can double this? How can I do this? Because like once I clear all the debt that I currently have, that's going to be the only game I'll play. Okay. Period. I'll just be doing that. And then it'll just be like, what's Ray doing? Be like, he's still taking those $10,000 loans, but he's taking like 4 of them now because the income stream is paying for 3 and I'm paying for 1. It's just like, I'll just keep doing this and keep cycling it. And you can play that game indefinitely as long as you're managing your income stream appropriately. Now that could be anything. Like you could funnel that into a business that produces income. You could do a bunch of stuff, But the thing is, like, at no point is this too small to scale if your credit's right and you have the ability to do this. One of the other things that actually you could do this with no credit. I have a whole video on my Cash App. I do this with Cash App. They front you money in Cash App also.
Okay, I've seen that.
Yep. And so I think it caps out at $650, but I've got access to $650 at 2.75%. Again, okay. For me, free money. Like, and so I can do that, and it's just like, cool, I can do that, and then next month just borrow it again. I'll pay it off when my dividend check comes in. Right. And then just re-borrow it immediately. Because you can do that. Like, as soon as you pay it back, you can just re-borrow it. Okay. I can just indefinitely do that. And like, that's something, because it starts you off at $50. Like, that's something that you can do, and you can scale it out, and you can learn how credit works. You can learn how to effectively use debt. And you don't have to have good credit to do that. They do it based on how much money you have sitting within the app, and they track your utilization of it and stuff like that. But that's another thing that you can use, where it's like, even if you have no debt, you can go set up a Cash App and start scaling up that $50. You just borrow money, put it in an asset, and then pay it back next check. Mm-hmm. Super easy. And like I said, like, mine capped out at 650. Like, when I first started utilizing Cash App for buying Bitcoin, that was how I did it, to scale up my credit pool to see how much they would give me, because I figured it would cap out at 1,000. Apparently it caps out at $650. So but yeah, like, it's stuff like that where it's like there's always a way. And the less money you have and the more in the mud you are, the more savvy you have to be. But like, that financial discipline piece is the key when it comes to using debt and leveraging anything. Right. You have to have that. Like, if you don't, then like, yes, this is a nuclear bomb and don't go near it, and it's terrible and you shouldn't touch it. But like, if you're financially responsible, then like, something like this used what I would consider appropriately, game changer for somebody who's in the working class, to be able to scale yourself to a position. Because I mean, think about that. The situation that I'm in right now, I'm giving myself a $10,000 income raise per year without asking anyone for anything per year. 10 years of this, that's a 6-figure income kicking out of that portfolio. Yeah. Right? You can change your existence in 10 years doing this. And then that's not even including the doubling up of the debt draw that you can leverage now. Yeah. So like, I could actually do this faster. I'm choosing to do it the slow way because like, I had some other debt that I was working on, because I'm an advocate of debt. So like, when I'm buying crypto, like during the season when it's time to accumulate, I'll run up some debt, because I'm like, I'm putting the whole check in there. Everything goes on the card, and I'll just manage it until I need to start paying it back. Like, because 90% of the time during a bull run for crypto for me, I could just cash out the Bitcoin and be like, cool, I need to pay back 10 grand, whatever. And I've made so much money that it's just like, okay, like this isn't losing out of the nugget that I made, because like, this is worth so much more if I need to. But I try not to do that. Like, that's not the goal, because I don't like giving up assets, because then you got to pay taxes, and it's like a bunch of rigmarole with that. But yeah, like,
is a bull run when the asset is at its highest value?
It's when it runs up. It's so like a bull run is a crypto terminology. Like, I mean, they have stock market bull runs. It's like if you have like a really good year in stocks and like all the prices run up, that would be considered a bull run. But with crypto, it happens cyclically. So it's every 4 years, the amount of Bitcoin that's produced gets cut in half. So it's programmatic scarcity. So like, now you can't get as much of it. And it happens every 4 years. And normally there's the halving, and then the year of the halving, there's upward volatility. But then the next year, it's like there's this like fever pitch blow off top where it just goes up astronomically high. And yeah. And then dips down again generally, and then we start working the train back up for 4 years, and yeah.
Okay, so the dips are by design to eventually make it worth more again.
At the end of the bull run cycle, it is by design, but like now that we have institutions in here, it's the field of how things work has changed. Like it's changed dramatically. So as more people and as more countries and the more adoption Bitcoin has, it becomes like trying to find a good example that people would understand. Actually, we could go with gold. Like, look at the way that gold moves now. Like, people are like, gold's a reserve, and like it goes up, but like it don't go up as fast as other things. Like the stock market's more exciting than gold. Like if you just buy gold, like they're like, hey, like we had a 10% year and it was a good year. But the reason being is there's always more gold. The other reason being is the world has decided that gold is the thing that they want to back all this stuff. Like they're like, it's a means of transference of value of last resort for everyone. Like you can go to any country and people will buy gold from you. Bar none. People always want gold. But since we've all accepted it, it's not as volatile as things that people haven't all accepted. So like as Bitcoin's being adopted, like that volatility, the big swings up and the big swings down, they get scrunched and it gets normalized. And then eventually it's going to be like the stock market, but it'll be better than the stock market, but they'll be like, it'll have like an average where it's like the S&P went up 10%, Bitcoin went up 25. And people will be like, man, that was a great year for that Bitcoin run. But like right now it's like Bitcoin went up 400%. And you're like, that was a great run for that Bitcoin run. And it's just like, yeah, and everything else, stuff was going bananas with the other cryptocurrencies as well. That will get tempered as we get more institutional money in it and as more people come in. Because like the more people are in, it's like most of the people who've been around a long time, like I don't sell Bitcoin. I only buy it. Like I don't sell it. And as it goes up in price, people will be less likely to sell it. It's like $1 million homes. You don't see multi-million-dollar homes selling all the time because people just hold on to them. They're like, I got this. This thing is scarce. This is a 101. It's worth $20 million. Like they don't go, I'm going to live in it for a year and then sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And so Bitcoin can be looked at as digital property. So the people that understand how it works are holding on to it because they're going, well, in 6 years, it's going to be worth more. In 10 years, it's going to be worth more. And like, as it becomes worth more, the volatility on it goes down. Like we're not going down to $30,000 anymore. Like it's ratcheted its way up and people are like, oh, we're going down. It's going down. It's like for a hair of a second. And then it goes right back up. And like, that's the range that we're in now. Like we're not going down to those low numbers anymore.
Gotcha.
And I mean, I've been in it for 10 years. So like, I remember when Bitcoin was $1,300, it was almost 70 today. We touched 71 already.
Interesting.
And that was a decade ago, $1,300. And now we're in the range that we're in. I remember when Bitcoin broke $20,000 and we thought that was a big deal. Crazy. Like never going to go higher than this. $25,000. Touched 71. Now we're in this range. Like, I'm like, this thing, since I've been involved with it, has only done one thing. It's done it in stretches and there's been ups and downs, but it's only gone one direction collectively. That's up. And so as people come into the market, there's also not enough of it to go around for everybody. Like there wasn't even enough. There's not even enough. There's only 21 million Bitcoin. There's not even enough for everyone on this planet to have one. You can't even have a whole one.
Okay. Interesting.
So like the game theory on that, it's like after we get to 21 million, it's over. Like that's all that's going to be made. And then like we can change hands with it, but they're not going to be making any more of it ever, no matter what. It's done.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's 100% a scarce asset. That's the game theory part of it. So like you got to think there's people like me who have over a Bitcoin. There's companies that have thousands of Bitcoin. the government has or I think it's a couple of 100,000 Bitcoin.
Okay.
Like, those are also off the table for everyone else. And it's like you have countries like there's a few African countries that are very, actually the continent of Africa is the highest utilizer of the Bitcoin network because their currencies are so corrupt and so volatile that Bitcoin's less volatile than that. So it's a way to transact and hold the value.
Okay.
So you have these people that are starting to, in countries that don't have solid monetary systems or as solid monetary systems as we do, that are actually using it for like everyday use. Like, I got to pay my phone bill. I'm going to send some Bitcoin. I'm going to buy some grapes from you, give you Bitcoin. And then from the country standpoint, you have places using it for strategic reserves. They're using it in pensions. They're standardizing it as legal tender for the country. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just said, oh wow, I didn't realize all of that was going.
Well, it's because we only see things in our bubble.
Yeah.
Like, and Bitcoin is very much a global asset. Like, if all of America said we ban Bitcoin, it's not over by any means. Like, we're not even the majority of the mining capacity on Bitcoin right now. Like, it's because people are using it to circumvent the matrix that they've set up, because those other countries, what we do here affects them from a monetary perspective. Mm-hmm. What their governments do and their levels of corruption affect them from a monetary perspective. Like, it's not one of those things where it's like it was initially made for everyone. Like, I always tell people, I'm like, the biggest revolutionary act that you could have is buying Bitcoin, because you're circumventing the system. You're protecting your wealth. You're not putting yourself in a situation where you have to worry about inflation forcing you to spend your money, because that's what we live in right now. Like, if we all just save money like Dave Ramsey wanted, and we all save cash, inflation forces us to have to sell it, because we go, I can buy less this year than I could last year now because I saved this money. This money is a liability
okay.
that I'm holding on to try to like make myself wealthy. I can't keep it in the currency of the country I live in. And it's worse everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, much worse. Like, if you look at what's going on over in Japan right now, their economy is collapsing against the dollar in a drastic way, because the way their policies are set up, and like, that's a first world country.
Okay, I didn't know that either.
Oh yeah, it's bad, like real bad. I mean, a bunch of people, like, if you're planning on going vacation out of the country, because like I'm planning on going to Japan next year myself. Okay. Now's the time to go. This is in the last 30 years. You get the most stretch of your dollar in Japan that we've ever had in the last 30 years. Yeah. Because their dollar's weak against our stuff. Like, see, I mean, and they sell houses for like normal prices over there too. So like, if you might want to buy a house, they let people buy houses from outside the country.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. I mean, it's so like, when I look at it, when I'm looking at stuff like that, it's like Bitcoin in and of itself is financial freedom, because you're responsible for it. Like, you have the ability to self-custody it. You don't have to have a bank. You can still transact with it without a bank. There's no middleman. It's like the entire cryptocurrency space, the entire ethos of what we do in the space is remove middlemen, because all of our problems come from middlemen. like it literally is. There's just like some guy in there is like, give me $5 so we can finish this. And you're just like, what? Like, why are you here? Why? Where did you come from? Like, why is it if you don't have enough money sitting in your bank account losing value, do they charge you to have the bank account?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. It's like, spend your money or put more money in here so that we can do something, because the bank loans your money out. That's why. They're like, we want everybody here to have a minimum account of this much, or we're charging you. And that type of system, especially with currency, like, I mean, most people don't understand how currency fluctuates in other places, but like when Turkey was going through their hyperinflation, if you went to go buy a coffee, you bought your coffee, right? You go sit down and you drink your coffee and you go, you know what? This is a really good coffee. I want another one. You go back up there, the price is more in that time. That's how bad it is for some places. And I'm like, and so like, even though we have it better than most other people, a system like that, like we could get our money, our valuation can change at the drop of a hat. Like it really can. And so if you're trying to protect or preserve wealth, you've got to be able to grow it within the ecosystem that you're in. And like here, you can save dollars. It's not 100% horrible to have money in the bank, like emergency fund, whatever. But long-term saving in the bank, like those stories that they used to tell us when when I was growing up. I'm older than you, but when I was growing up, they used to tell us the stories of like, oh, this person put like $500 in the bank and then they found it like 30 years later and had $100,000 in there. I'm like, that is not even possible now. Period. Like, I don't even think that those stories were possible then. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, I'm like, no, that I understand compound interest pretty well. I don't know a time in which you could forget about $500 and come back and it's $100,000. Like it just, but that's the type of stuff they used to tell you to be like, hey, put money in the bank because the bank gets to and that's the thing. The bank leverages your money while telling you that that's bad. They loan your money out because we do fractional reserve banking.
Uh-huh.
And so with that, the bank is leveraging the money that you're putting in there and borrowing it to go invest in assets to make money. And that's how they pay you the interest that you get. You get a cut of it, but it's a very small cut. So yeah, I mean, it's as you're working your way up, there's different tools that are appropriate at different times. I honestly think that the way that our system is and like the tools that we have available, especially having Cash App that anyone can get basically, the debt method can be used at different scales. And so I'm like, I think at all scales, like even if you're just pulling $50, like that's 50 extra bucks every couple of weeks that you can focus on building a portfolio out. Like that could be the start of your savings. Like you just pay your Cash App loan back and just keep borrowing $50 and like build it out that way. Like, so for the debt, I think that scales at all levels at this point because of the things that are in existence now versus when I started my journey.
Okay. All right. That's good. And so to wrap everything up, I'll go over the list one more time and then give us your closing thoughts on that. Okay. And so today, folks, we talked about the 10 Reckless Ray Dinero official tips are: pay yourself first, have a financial standard, maximize what you have before chasing the bag, ignore the Joneses, money is a tool / energy / opportunity, $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow, if the government can print money out of thin air and you need it to live, you are a slave, money is a game, your net worth is your score, assets are better than income, and lastly, debt is a wealth creation tool. And so I think that this list is very interesting. I think that anybody who watches this, like you were saying, everything is scalable. So whether someone has a lot of disposable income and it's on the wealthier side, or someone doesn't have as much and is living a bit more hand to mouth, there's tips in here for everybody, and people can just start wherever they are.
Yep. And that's the important part, is starting. Like, I mean, a lot of people try to wait until everything's perfect, or I'm going to start investing next year when I get this raise, that they just start spending on the stuff that they were spending on before, just more of it. It's important to start. And as much as I talk trash about the Ramsey plan, it's a plan. And and honestly, I hate to say this. Actually, I don't hate to say it. It's the truth. Even a bad plan is better than no plan at all, because at least you find out that plan won't work. And you can do it fast. So like if you're having some framework, or you can find or a piece of it works. Like I've never done anything where I was like, this was a complete waste of time and this plan or this strategy had no merit to it and no parts of it worked. Every financial book that I've read, even the ones that were dumb, have had something in it where I'm like, I use that. I hated the rest of the book, but I use that. Like that makes sense.
Yeah.
So being able to dial in, and like when I first started off, I was not chewing the bone or chewing the fat and spitting out the bone. I was literally just going, okay, I don't know how. I have a bunch of ideas in my head. I'm just going to start with a plan. Yeah. Like I'm going to start doing this. Like I read this book. It really resonated with me. I'm going to do these things. Like, for me at the time, it was Ramit Sethi, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. I just did that. I was like, I'm just going to do this. Like, I don't have anything else. I'm just going to keep reading this book over and over again and just keep doing the stuff in here and try and figure it out.
Yeah. And
then after I got a little footing under me and I was like, oh, okay, like I can, and then, you know, you move on to the next book and you're like, okay, I was doing this and I'm going to try this plan. I'm going to implement something out of this book. And it's like, oh, okay. And you just keep doing that. And then you get to a point to where you have your own flow. Like you've pieced together your plan. Because there is no a plan. There's a your plan. And it's the reason that you don't see everyone get rich doing any of the plans that the guru says. Like there's people that like can just do exactly what they say and it works. You're going to have those people. But like if you have like 100,000 people do exactly what I tell them, it's going to work for somebody. Yeah. The issue is knowing the pieces of it that work for your situation. Because again, like I said, there's different situations and it's based on you. But the most important part of it is you got to get started experimenting stuff. And it's not going to just be perfect. It's not going to be right unless you're lucky. You might get lucky. And it is just perfect and right. But some of it you might be like, yo, like I like doing this piece of it, but like this doesn't work for me. Like I need to keep educating myself and adding on, because finance doesn't just stop. The principles are the same. I mean, if you're just going to go based off principles, read The Richest Man in Babylon and call it a day. Like principles are always going to stay the same. But the financial space that you're in and the efficiency of things changes. And that's the reason you have to be flexible. Like you can't just be like, oh, I'm just going to keep doing this. Because when a great example is when they took away the cheap mortgages, because a lot of people were leveraging their homes when the mortgage rates were low to do investment stuff and buy crypto. And they took away all the easy money. All the easy money got dried up. But if you have good credit, you could still do the credit conversions into cash.
Okay.
Different tool. Now, using your house, you could get a bigger chunk of money and it didn't really affect your credit. Using your credit card affects your credit score adversely. So like your credit score is now choppy. Like now it's going up and down, but you're using it. Leveraging your house doesn't really hit your credit score. Like it doesn't hit it the same way that a credit card taking out a $10,000 screwing up your credit ratios, because like it's not regarded the same. So but like the tool shifted and it was like, oh, okay, well, like we can't do this anymore because like this might be a little bit more riskier now. This is less risky as long as I know I can pay it back within 10 months. So I have a cushion. You get 12. I always say shoot for 10 because like just in case you need that money one of those months and you're like, now you got 2 months of I screwed up. And you're still good. But it's being strategic. And like it's important that you start, because then you're going to learn what works for you, what your appetite is, what resonates. Because not everything or not everybody is for everybody. That's the reason when it comes to money, that's not much of an argument. It's like, what are your results and are they efficient? It's the only thing I care about. Like, are you getting a result or is this an ideal? And if you are getting a result, now we can go to paper and I can be like, well, cool. Like, this is what I'm able to produce. Like, what are you able to produce? That's the end of the conversation. It's like, cool. Like, if that's where you want to be, like, that's fine. Like, that's interesting. Like, and most of the time when I have those conversations or find other people who are teaching other styles of finance, I'll tap in and be like, is there anything in here that I can apply to what I'm doing?
Right.
Every time. Because I'm like, why wouldn't I want to be better at this game? Like, I gotta be here. Like, so, but yeah, it's important that you start, because like that's the hard part. And lastly, and I'm gonna leave it at this, don't just read a book so that you can come into a conversation with me on a panel and say, I know that. Actually apply it. Reading the book doesn't do anything for your personal situation if you're not trying the stuff that you're reading. And that goes with anything. Like, don't listen to my content so that you can be like, oh, I know what he's talking about. Like, no, go test it and see if you can make yourself some money. Like, get in a better situation. Like, so that way you can talk from experience and be like, I did that and it didn't work and this is why. So we can talk about, did you use the tool right? Like, I'd rather have that conversation than somebody who's just like, I know what that is. Like, okay. So, get out there and start trying stuff.
Yeah. I've heard it restated, there's a popular quote that says that knowledge is power. But I've heard other people say, like the proper quote should be that applied knowledge is power. Yep. Because knowledge doesn't do anybody any good if you're not using it. And so, read all the books you want, but if you're not trying anything and you're not actually moving forward, then it's not, then it's a liability and it's a depreciating asset and it's not becoming a good asset for you. Facts. And so, Ray, where can people find you? When do you post normally? And can people reach out to you directly?
Oh, yeah. So at Reckless Ray Dinero on everything. You can shoot me an email, recklessraydinero@gmail.com. I have 2 shows that I'm doing right now, actively, religiously, regularly. The first one is Future Financial Strategies, which Future Financial Strategies is Thursday mornings. I normally release them at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. So it's like it's a morning deal, catch you on your way to work. Normally the episodes, I try to keep them at around an hour or less, because I know that people don't have like a whole lot of time. So, and then the other one is Crypto Portfolio Updates. I forgot to explain what Future Financial Strategies is. So Future Financial Strategies, I go over the actual strategies that I'm implementing in my personal financial situation, and I'm reporting back results, things that we're talking about. And yeah, that's it. It's very financial strategy. It covers everything. So like all the strategic stuff, that's going to be the show you want to tap in on. Next, first Monday, I have a monthly show now. First Monday under the Future Financial Strategies banner is portfolio updates, which I track my traditional financial portfolio, which is the high income dividend investing strategy that I'm using. And I have like a long-term hold portfolio, and we are also tracking the family funds in there. And eventually we're going to have some option stuff that we're tracking in there, but that's not me. I get those fed to me from other people, and we're just going to see the results of being a part of that goes. Something to experiment with. But I go deep dive into my income portfolio, which is the lion's share of what we're doing over there right now. As we're building that income out. And then my third show is Crypto Portfolio Updates, where I am tracking my crypto portfolio adventure during the 2024 into 2025 bull run. And we just talk about all things crypto. The backdrop of it is we track my portfolio. We talk about how we're doing, the moves that I'm making, and the positions I'm in. And yeah, so those are my 3 shows. I also do a live stream that I'm getting ready to resurgent after I get through this month of August. I got like the first 3 weeks of August. I'm super busy. I've been injured and I've also been busy. So like it just makes doing a live show weekly not possible. But Thursday evenings, Guns and Butter. We're going to be bringing it back either the last week of August or the first week of August, September, first week of September. And that's going to be it's an open panel discussion. I normally pick random topics, but people can chime in and ask questions for pretty much anything. And I just kind of chat with people for a few hours, and we shoot the stuff, and the chat kind of dictates the direction of the show. Like I kind of have an overarching theme of what I want to talk about. But if they start asking good questions, then I dial in on that, and I'll just answer questions, and we can deep dive in that. You can ask from the chat, or you can come up onto the panel and talk to me live.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about where Guns and Butter went. So I'm glad you.
Yeah, I was stuck on that couch, bro. Like, I was just like, I couldn't even sit up, and then like when I could sit up, I was like, dude, like now I'm tired. I've been laying down for a month. So like getting back onto my schedule has been hard. Like even like coming home, getting ready and doing this. This is like the first, like, I mean, I kind of dipped out on a lot of panels just because like these YouTube streets are relentless, man. Like there's just like, there's conversations I just don't need to be a part of anymore at this point.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm bringing Guns and Butter back. It's going to be every time I've taken a break and come back, it's been a better iteration than what it was. So I'm kind of excited for the iteration that I've got conceptualized for what it is. Cause like, I love talking about finance. It's based like finance, politics, history, but like it's like boring stuff. But I think the most useful is the finance, and like a lot of the Guns and Butter crowd, people over in the Wolf Pack, they dial in on that. Like that's kind of our thing. So I like being able to shed some practical information on people and help them navigate these waters to hopefully open the cell to their open air prison.
All right. Well, I mean, I certainly appreciate the information that you have. I know this has turned out to be a lot longer than I realized. So I appreciate you taking the time out.
Oh, no problem.
Like that lady said, why are you giving all this information for free? So, the information is there, folks. I know a lot of people want to hide it from you, but, the information is there. It's at hand, at arm's reach. And so, what's 3 hours when it comes to your long-term financial stability or financial security? And so I hope that you guys enjoyed and gleaned some wisdom from this. Even if you think he's out to lunch on a few things, I mean, surely you can see that some of this is objectively true, which is the whole point of this. That you don't have to be in a certain group to realize that certain people can be right. You don't have to be a fundamentalist Christian to understand that, there are just universal truths that are, general and good for everyone to utilize.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to thank you again, Ray, for coming on and for helping me out in my time that I'm going to be down and, for when I have this baby. And I hope that your leg continues to heal and that you are back better than ever.
Absolutely. Anytime. Happy to be here. I appreciate you.
Thanks again. And so that's all, folks. I hope that you guys were taking some notes. I hope that you got some good information. I know some good information was said, but I hope, it was actually heard and received. Because like he was saying that, hearing it or, just reading something is not good enough if it's not being applied. And so don't be afraid to reach out to him and, ask him to go in depth about anything more that you heard. If you have any questions about Bitcoin or about other crypto or brokerage firms or reverse mortgages or what have you, I trust him as a good source. I wouldn't just bring anybody up here, especially not talk about money. And so he gets the Mrs. Ginny stamp of approval. So I hope that you guys will reach out to him and glean some wisdom. But other than that, folks, I've kept you long enough. I hope that you all have a very wonderful evening, and I will be sure to talk to you again real soon. Good night. All right, everybody. So yes, like Beak said, tonight's stream was a marathon stream. I had like completely forgotten that stream was 3 hours, but I appreciate everybody who tuned in and watched at least most of it. I know probably very few of you watched all of it, but who at least watched most of it. And I'm repping my Shady Maple shirt tonight. Shout out to everybody who recognizes the shirt. And here's MJ. Say hi. So, all right, everybody. I have one more pre-record left for you guys for next week, and then we will be back, hopefully live and in color for the beginning of the new year. But I hope you guys enjoyed everything, and I will talk to you guys again real soon.